So here's a headline that's making a lot of people upset. This is from The Hill. It says progressives fight over leverage amid ever slimming majority. Democrats will need near total cooperation among everyone in their House and Senate caucuses to pass any bills on their own without GOP support. That's an interesting article headline. Progressives fight for leverage. First sentence, everyone has leverage. That's what it is. Everyone, what? Progressives fight for leverage.
Huh?
Every one of them has leverage. Every Democrat, they now need your vote. They now need your vote. It means only a handful of Democrats can hold up a bill. It also means that they will be all under more pressure than ever to stick together. Who wrote this at The Hill? Did they watch the Jimmy Dore show? I think they did. You watch the Jimmy Dore show late November? And now decide in April to write this article? Are you shitting me? You're writing this article now? Who the fuck wrote this article?
Scott Wong
and Christina. But always takes two people to write something like this. Really? I could have wrote this fucking in my sleep. It means only a handful of Democrats can hold up a bill. Okay. That handful could be progressives holding out for things that actually help people. That could be. We have really thin margins, says Representative Dan Kildee, Democrat from Michigan, the Democrats' chief deputy whip and a member of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We have really thin margins, meaning that progressives have all the leverage in the world. And they're not going to use it. But you know who will? Joe Manchin. Kristen Sinema will. Given the party's razor-thin margins, Kildee is offering this advice to his colleagues. Keep your powder dry. I would like to find, how big do you think the room is where the progressives keep their powder dry? How big is that fucking room? I'm going to say it's a couple of football fields. Couple of football fields wide. Holy shit. Keep your powder dry. House Democrats already started the year with the thinnest majority in generations before three members resigned to join Biden's administration and the death of Representative AOC Hastings of Florida last week. Democrats only could lose up to 4 of their own votes. Holy shit! Since Democrats took back control of the House in 2018, the 92-member Progressive Caucus, led by Chairwoman Pramila Jayapal, has not been following the model of the conservative House Freedom Caucus. No, they haven't? You mean they haven't been fighting for anything? They've been going along with their leadership? Asked why progressives have not flexed their political muscle more and threatened to kill Democratic bills to get more of their priorities, one progressive House aide replied, Democrats believe in government. What's the cost benefit of blowing up a bill? What's the cost of abandoning all the policies you guys were elected on? Interesting how corporate Democrats have the opposite approach that progressives do. Corporate Democrats always turn the screws on on their leadership, not the establishment, on their leadership. Hey, the squad can't do this. They only have 4 people. The squad can't do this. They only have 6 people. The squad can't do this. They're only 12 people. Hey, the squad can't do this. They're only 30 people. The excuse will always be the same, and people will keep dying. Remember what Ilhan Omar tweeted out? She said, yes, we can. With a slim Democratic majority in the next Congress, anything can be possible. It will literally take 5 courageous progressive members to get concessions on progressive policy. Now it's just 4. It's just 4. So you, Jayapal, AOC, and anyone else, pick one. Pick Mark Pocan. Pick Jamal Bowman. Pick Cori Bush. Pick Ro Khanna. Pick Ayanna Pressley. Pick anybody. You got it. You guys have all the power, and they're not going to use it. But you know why? Because they want to make Cenk Uygur and Ryan Grimm look like fucking dickheads, and they want to make Jimmy Dore look like a genius. I can't think of any other reason why they wouldn't do this, but that's the result. They're making those guys look like complete and utter dickheads. And they're making me look like a genius. And I'll take it. I'll take it. Here, speaking of guys looking like a dickhead, here he is. He's tweeting this out after saying we shouldn't criticize them, after lovingly begging them to do something. Cenk Uygur tweets out this article and says, this is signaling near complete surrender of progressives in Congress, and the reporters barely noticed. Oh, Cenk Uygur's on it, though, now. He's only 6 months late to the party, but he's on it now. Those shitty reporters over at the Hill, they couldn't figure it out, huh? The headline is the exact opposite of reality. Not asking for big progressive priorities means you definitely will not get them. Worst strategy ever. First of all, you don't need to put near. This is signaling complete surrender, not near complete. This is complete surrender. But I like that Cenk Uygur is now on board with the Jimmy Dore and finally has the clarity to see the situation in the House of Representatives for what it was. The same situation we saw last November. Here at the Jimmy Dore Show, what he's talking about, we saw last November, and then he worked to undermine us when we were saying these things. Up until 5 seconds ago, now
there has been a fair amount of sort of grappling with the fact that, the whole Bernie thing appears to have petered out and we don't have a lot to show for it. Bhaskar Sankara wrote a piece, I think last year, where he sort of talked about the fact that, it definitely appears that we're sort of in a unhealthy stasis at this point. So that notion is out there. But, I emphasize this in the piece for a point, like, it's not just that it's annoying to me when you get all of the sort of AOC and Bernie, like, sort of, mythology and, we have to support our socialist champions stuff at the same time as everyone is saying we can't do anything. They're still fucking asking for donations all the time, right? Like, when I'm told, we can't expect anything from these people because they don't have enough power. My natural response is, okay, why did I make all those $27 donations? And, when I first started donating to Bernie when I was a grad student, right? Like the whole Bernie machine hoovered up millions of dollars off of small donors, which sounds very noble when you're talking about how Washington gets funded. But then when you turn around and say, we can't get anything done, it seems kind of malign to me, right? Like you took those donations and you sent the fundraising emails in which you talked about everything that you're going to get done and how powerful you are, and now you're saying, we can't do anything. That seems pretty cruel to me.
Yeah, so this is good because this is the area where we disagree. So most of your piece, when I'm reading it,
God,
there we go.
Yep, because as you said,
God,
you're cataloging the votes and the specific points where you're like, messed up here. What are you trying to do? What's your identity? Are you really an outsider? Are you trying to be an insider? You're trying to win higher office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I still, ultimately, the part where I disagree was that last part where I felt like you sort of fed into what I would describe as the doomerism and the nihilism on the left, which is a pervasive problem on the left that we always have to, I feel like, combat. Whereas your argument seems...
Welcome to another episode of the Post-Duopoly Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be back with family. What's poppin'? We got Kid from Harlan's Media, our great friend here. We got Dude This here. What's poppin', Kid?
I just have to say I just saw the Jimmy Dore show last night at Zany's in the Old Town neighborhood on the north side of Chicago. Great time hanging out with him after the show. And hey, look, just a trigger to vote blue no matter who, people. Jimmy Dore was right. Jimmy Dore was correct. And the thing is, we all saw this years ago. So everyone, light them up if you got them, because now everyone's catching up to the fact that the Democrats are frauds.
And I hope there's
Not
a
Kyle.
Yeah. What's popping, Russell and Keaton? What's popping?
That was look, man, I don't want to hold it against you, but that was a hell of a thing to assault us with at the top of the show. Kyle's hot take on the collapse of the Justice Democrats.
Yeah, that's
you
violence.
Didn't give us a warning. That language can be violence.
Well, I'm a little
upset
at Russell.
Violence.
I'm a little upset at Russell because I was going to brand Kyle the Seafoam left because of that Seafoam background, but I can't brand him the Seafoam left because fucking Russell's wearing Seafoam. He's got a Seafoam T-shirt. So how can I talk?
That's it. It would look like subtext tension at due dissonance.
No, exactly, and it's really undermining our message.
This is actually I got this shirt from the commies.
Oh, workers should run the world. All right.
There you go.
Right on.
Right.
So yeah.
Right on. All right. Well,
I'll let it slide.
I want to add something because I want to get to the clip because Kyle says he disagrees, and yeah, Kyle is absolutely torture to listen to. I have no idea how people listen to this guy. And the first guy, the guest he have on, actually made a pretty good point. The point that we made pretty often on RBN, like why are we even donating to these people who are so apparently powerless? People who have no strategy to advance the movement. And this is the grift of the Bernie industrial complex. And Kyle said, I disagree. Disagree with what? Bernie Sanders ran on political revolution. He asked for donations for political revolution. So he committed fraud.
Well, this represented a major sort of fissure in this sort of space of ours because I don't know, Nick, you talked about how you quit your job to volunteer for the Bernie campaign in 2020. We had started our show in 2019, right after Bernie launched. We weren't on YouTube. We were an audio show. But there, I feel like a lot of people in this space had a lot invested in the Bernie campaign as a vehicle for some sort of progress, even if Bernie lost, right? So like the way we sort of convinced ourselves that this was worthwhile was, okay, this is part of a movement, and that movement will be strong enough to transcend even a negative electoral outcome. And so a lot of us, I think, had a hard time sort of letting go of that, right? Once reality hits and you realize, okay, it didn't work out that way. I think a lot of people in this space felt the need to hang on to that because if they couldn't hang on to that, what could they tell their audience, right? And I think it took a certain honesty and a certain integrity to admit that defeat, not only to ourselves, but to our audiences, which I think all three of us, so meaning all three of our shows in this space, have done. And it wasn't easy to do that. Like, that was a tough pill to swallow, but it was the truth. And we have an obligation to tell the truth first. And so I think that's why we are where we are. And, he is where he is.
Yeah, we have harsh criticisms, and I'll pass it to you, kid.
Yeah.
But you mentioned, Keaton, how people had a hard time moving on from the Bernie movement. Trust me, I know there's not many people who put more hours into that shit than I did. Knocked on thousands of doors, worked on there for quite a few weeks. And the reason why we had these critiques of these social democrats.
Were you being paid or just straight volunteer?
Straight volunteer.
Oh my
I had
God.
supporters.
Wow.
I had supporters that helped fund my trips when I was gone. But for the most part, I took a giant financial hit. Once again, I'm making around 40, 50K a year. Now I was struggling to get by. I had people who supported my luckily it was around the same time I launched my Substack. I launched my YouTube. So I had a lot of people who wanted to support my citizen journalism at the same time. So thank God I launched that as well, because if it wasn't for that, there's no way I could actually pull that off. But Keaton, you mentioned how there's people who have no idea what to do with the Bernie movement. That's why there's a lot of frustration I have with the left, because after Bernie lost, my immediate thought was, okay, we got to go harder. I'm shifting and doubling down and shifting further to the left. That's when I really started reading to Marxism, started to question what what went wrong. And after Bernie lost, I'm like, okay, Bernie is now the compromise. He has far right as we're going to go. We got to shift down and literally punish these people from denying what I view as a very centrist, the last hurrah, doing the nice way, I should say. Meanwhile, you have a large swath of Bernie supporters, a very significant amount of them, and including the entire industrial class, who did the exact opposite. When I shifted further to the left and I doubled down, I want to get smarter. I want to be more intelligent. I want to see what happened, what went wrong, and be smarter. There are a lot of people that after the Bernie Sanders campaign left, they shifted to the right. And they said, okay, that was a fun project. Now we're just going to be ordinary Democrats now. AOC, the ordinary Democrat now. DSA, an ordinary Democrat front group who just voted like, yeah, we're just doing Democrat shit. We don't care if people if socialists are upholding their standards. We're not going to challenge outside the two-party duopoly. That is what it led to. It was a massive, fraudulent scam done on the working class. And RBN is the first media platform, the first channel that channeled the proper rage towards this situation. These people are grifters. Bernie people got upset. But anyway, I won't get Kid in here. I know you want to chime in. But Bernie is a grifter. But go ahead, Kid.
Well, the thing is, too, you have to look at how people's mindset, because a lot of people have a hard time just realizing the fact that they wasted 8 years of their life, maybe 10 years of their life to somebody.
Hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes, and not only that, but also it's just like, because imagine that, like, a lot of people took that on as their identity. Because I remember in Philly after the first convention, how I was thinking, okay, well, this time around in 2020, Bernie's going to be ready. He'll have the proper legal team and the groups necessary to fight against any kind of election fraud or lack of election integrity in the primaries, in the 2020 primary. And, Daniel and I were very enthusiastic about how that would play out. But as the months were going on and as the primaries were happening, yeah, there was that point where Bernie Sanders was winning, but it wasn't aggressive enough. And after that infamous Super Tuesday, there was a realization in our studio. We're like, oh no, he's going to fizzle out and drop out before the convention even happens. He's not going to make it a contested convention. He is going to let the people down. And as soon as that happened, I had to tell like a lot of Bernie Sanders groups, like, hey, look, guys, I think we need to reevaluate his entire decision. And then when you see people sheepdogging people into the Democratic Party with Justice Democrats, DSA, brand new Congress, that was like the second fake attempt, false attempt, a false narrative to bring up hope again. And now look at where we're at. I think for many people, they have to. It's like realizing that your spouse is cheating on you. Okay, you don't want to think it. You would think like, no, I love this person too much. They love me too. They would never hurt me. But the thing is, that's how manipulative the Democratic Party is. That's exactly what they're designed to do. They're designed to tell you things you want to hear, and then as soon as you do those favors for them, then they go right back to stealing money from you. They go right back to ignoring you, not paying you attention, and disrespecting you. And if someone disrespects you, then you have no incentive to be with them, because every point in time they're going to be talking bad about you behind your back. And looking at how it's all falling apart with Justice Democrats, how DSA is having memberships leave, people leave en masse in the DSA, that tells a lot about where the mindset is with people. And there's two ways of looking at it. It's either there's going to be a huge population that's not going to vote at all, or maybe a good portion that might vote independent or third party. But for the most part, I think gone are the days of a Bernie Sanders movement ever happening. Bernie Sanders is the dog that caught the car, and he didn't know what to do with it. And I think for many years now, since he started that movement in 2016, he's been trying to dismantle it, because I don't think he expected it to grow and expand as it did. And he probably got some phone calls from Democratic donors like, hey, Bernie, correct this. You better fix this. You better do this, do this. And Bernie Sanders was like, yes, I'll do this. I'll say that you're going to compromise with me on this. Don't do it, but I'll keep people loyal and say, we'll try and do this. We'll try and do this. And it's, for me, I feel happy. I feel ecstatic to see the Democrats and people waking up. On the other hand, too, it's just think about all the time and energy that could have been focused on something else other than Bernie Sanders and the false shepherd that he turned out to be.
You know what I keep remembering, and a lot of us probably read it because back in those days we used to read everything coming out about Bernie Sanders in the establishment press. There was an article that was all Washington insiders talking about how Bernie Sanders was full of shit. Because if you actually knew Bernie Sanders and you did business with Bernie Sanders in Washington, he was no revolutionary. That this guy was a pretty standard politician who did deals and did compromises. They didn't claim he was corrupt, but they were basically saying, like, this guy's no, Fidel Castro throwing bombs in the Congress. This is a guy who'll give a speech and then he'll sit down and cut a deal. He brings stuff home to his district like anybody else. And basically the upshot of the article was all these Washington insiders talking about how it drove them crazy that Bernie Sanders was able to present himself as this revolutionary when they all knew that that was not who he was. That's one of the things that is most infuriating about who he turned out to be. He made the libs right. All of us, all those hours that we spent, you don't know what you're talking about arguing with these libs, man. And some of them were just as wrong in their own way. But some of them who were just kind of cynical and cold-eyed, who just said, you're just buying into a con. This guy's not that. They were right.
Yeah.
We were wrong. We were wrong. And that is a very bitter pill to swallow.
Let me sort of focus the topic.
Oh God, not him again.
Come on, this fucking asshole.
On, CJ.
Every time he says movement, I throw up a little bit in my mouth. He loves to use that word. What we have to do for the movement? What the fuck, you don't know what the fuck a movement is, motherfucker. What are you talking about, movement?
The movement is probably when he craps his pants when Crystal kind of eyes him evilly, like, you better say something nice about Marianne in this video.
Unfortunately, guys, we actually have 2 clips of his we're gonna play. So this is so because in sort of researching and preparing this, it was very hard to find articles and videos that was talking about the Justice Democrats collapse that wasn't also talking about the Bernie Sanders issue. So they're kind of all intertwined. So we may go in and out of, because we need to talk about the collapse of the Justice Democrats. And I want to do that first, because then the question after that segment will be, does the collapse of the Justice Democrat indicate anything about the Bernie Sanders movement being dead or not? Because they are intertwined to me at the hip. They're one and the same, in my opinion. And then we'll move on to the other video where he's talking about the next topic. I'm sorry, the next connected topic. So I'm sorry, is the Bernie Sanders movement dead? And that's with Freddie DeBauer. Now, we covered his article, and he has Freddie DeBauer on to debate him. And I know some of you already covered it, so we're gonna kind of piece this together, because we, as the post-duopolists, we have a unique ability and a unique sort of duty to sort of analyze the collapse of the Justice Democrats, how it was connected to the enthusiasm being low, the donations drying up, all of these sort of things happening, and then answering the broader question is the Bernie movement dead? So that is the plan. We want to try to keep this maybe about an hour with both videos, maybe 30 minutes with this one, 30 minutes with the next one. We will have a lot to say, we already know, but let's make sure we're trying to keep it with the framing of, we're talking about the collapse where we've already left. We're the post-duopoly. We've already left this. We've already left for the reasons Freddie DeBauer has spoken about and written about. So let's get into this, Nick. And the reason I asked you, because my internet, when I move, the internet is worse over here. So it's going in and out. Sometimes I may be glitchy. So Nick will play the video. So start and stop wherever you want. We'll probably only get through maybe 6 or 7 minutes of it before 30 minutes is up, before we go to the next video. But All right, Nick, whenever you're ready, unless somebody else want to preface this video.
Big story dropped last week
and you want to
about
preface
Justice Democrats that I wanted to share with you and give you guys my take on it. So Huffington Post has this long article by Daniel Marans, who, by the way, does a phenomenal job with his reporting. I feel like this was very detailed. And the title here is "A Progressive Powerhouse's Surprise Layoffs Fuel Concerns About the Left's Future. Justice Democrats played a critical role in electing the squad. Now it will have to do more with less." Okay. So they actually bring me up in this piece and, some of my criticisms against Justice Democrats. And like I said, very long article, very detailed. Do yourself a favor and go read the entire thing. But I'll sum it up for you here, and then I'll give you guys my take on it. So basically...
You guys wonder why the state of the left is how it is right now? Why the state of the progressive movement is so pathetic? Mm-hmm. Because people like Kyle Kalinske has been influential voice for 10 plus years.
Not only that,
TYT has been a thing for how long? People haven't even heard of mutual aid until RB hit the scene. You know how many people tell me that? What other YouTube channel was even talking about it before RBN? It wasn't a thing. You have morons like Kyle Kalinske giving the working class horrible advice, and you have the professional managerial class who uplift this moron like he's some sort of intellectual. Never read theory a day in his life.
Not only that, he has made himself comfortable. He has built himself up as this individual that supposedly was going to challenge the Democrats, be a voice for the voiceless, but he made himself comfortable. And by getting fat, no pun intended, he wants to ensure that his apple cart is not disrupted because he wants to be part of a club. He needs to be part of a club because that's how insignificant Kyle feels. Because again, anyone that he's been associated with no longer wants to be around him. I mean, look at his betrayal to Jimmy Dore, and also even TYT no longer associates with him. That's how far Kyle has fallen, and he wants to remain relevant and comfortable, and wants to bring up hope for the Democrats, so he still has that cushiony job with the people in the elite media. That's the only reason why. So,
do you guys have any idea how much of a joke the United States left is compared to, like, the way that I would talk to Josana and many Brazilian socialists and communists? They're like, "What American left? What Bernie?" Like it's a joke to them who we are, and that's because people like Kyle's been in charge. But Russell, I know you want to chime in. Russell, you can chime in, and we get back to the video after you.
I mean, man, I think he has a fetish for older women, and all of this is part of his submission. This is, I think his show is just him acting out his submission kink. Crystal tells him what to do. Marianne kind of backs it up, and that's pretty much his show. That's the only way I can explain how he looks like, they took him and just bleached him somewhere. Yeah. And fried out his hair, and you look at how he looked before he started dating Crystal. It's like they turned him into a vampire or something. Like he doesn't even look like the same person.
No.
Like and his politics at this point, like, I mean, he was always a bowl of warm oatmeal, but he was never this just fundamentally dumb. Like his takes don't even seem like his takes. Like he seems like he's trying to please somebody. Like what are you even talking about? I don't even. You forgot to mention my queen, Marianne. Like, look, man. Even if you do like her, why would you talk like that if you want to be taken seriously as a commentator, even if that's, you support Marianne and all that? Like, why would you talk that way? That's what I'm saying. Like, looking at how he behaves, it's just not even in accord with who he was before. Like, even if, he's become more corrupted, it's not, it's just dumb. Like, the things he's saying are so dumb, it almost seems like he's trying to please Crystal, frankly. I mean, I know that's getting
if I was being a growth scientist, if I was being a street psychologist, right, I could make a theory, because there's a very hilarious video we're going to show you guys, so you can know without a shred of a doubt that it was not us that changed. It was people like Kyle Kalinske. So there's this video with Kyle, and we're going to play this after this segment. So you're saying, if you think Joe Biden is worse than, if you think Donald Trump is worse than Joe Biden, you're an idiot. These are things that he used to say. So you can make the argument that Kyle's blonde hair is him in a psychological way rejecting his past self. So he not only do he had to change his political rhetoric, he got to change his entire appearance because he's rejecting who he used to be in the past. So look, I'm not.
Look, man. I'm gonna keep it real. I'm not afraid to be a psychologist. This guy is whipped, man. He's whipped. He is doing whatever he needs to do to please his woman. That is what I see. Like, why would you make yourself look like Eminem? He knows that everybody's making fun of him. Do you think if she didn't like that, he would make himself look like that? So that means it was probably all right. Oh, baby, can you dye your hair? I think it's the same thing with his politics. I mean, that's like, yeah, I'm kidding, but I'm really not. Like, I do think that's a big part of what's going on. Like, yeah, might he have drifted into this kind of politics? Sure, that was going on for a long time. But I don't know, man. I've been around the block, and this seems like some whipped behavior to me.
Or either that, Crystal's got some A+ sex game, and it just made Kyle submissive.
Let's get back to the video. Let's get back to the video. Let's get back to the video.
Yeah, we don't want to leave too personal.
CJ's like, all right, we got a strike. And I don't know how this is going to play to the censors.
Yeah,
let's
just get to the video.
I'll give you a quick backstory just so you remember all the details here. But in the wake of the 2016 election, Hillary Clinton, of course, lost to Donald Trump. And I was just disgusted and furious that a guy like Donald Trump could get anywhere near the White House. And I view
not Hillary Clinton
that as a colossal failing of the Democratic Party to not be able to beat the most beatable opponent in history, because
I was disgusted that Hillary Clinton was about to get the honor of the first woman president. I was like, man, she don't deserve that shit.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. That was my reaction. Like Kyle was revealing his shit libbery.
I was so happy when Hillary Clinton lost. I mean, so many people were saying, like, kid, you got to vote for Hillary. You got to vote for Hillary. I was like, no, I don't. I was there in Philly. I saw what her people did to the delegates. I saw what the male delegates who were working for Hillary Clinton, what they were doing to women Bernie Sanders supporters and delegates. All the stories are the same.
Wait till you meet a male delegate for Hillary Clinton.
Yeah, geez.
Let's continue.
They will follow
Let's
continue. That disconnected from average people. And so, I got together with Cenk Uygur and Shoykat Chakrabarti and Corbin Trent and some others. And we decided we need to change the course of the Democratic Party and try to make it so we get representatives who stand for something, who will fight for the American people, and make it so that the Republicans are an afterthought and they lose all the time because we are representing the people so well. And, for me, a big inspiration about it was FDR. When you go back and read the history of FDR's time in office, it's astonishing. It's something we've never seen in the modern era. It's somebody won the presidential election 4 times. This is before there were term limits. In fact, the Republicans looked at that and said, we need to do term limits because we'll never be able to beat these guys because they're too good.
Oh, my God.
So he won the presidential election 4 times. And he also, at one point, held 80% of the House and 80% of the Senate. So just crushing majorities. Why? Because he delivered with the New Deal. And people said, oh, you help me, I will vote for you. And so we decided we need to fight back against the corporate Democrats and make the Democratic Party uncorrupted. And so the original working name for Justice Democrats was actually...
But that didn't work out. So you're supporting Marianne Williamson. Right. I mean, that's what's so absurd about this. He's like, yeah, no, now we admit that was a failure, which is why I'm now supporting Marianne Williamson for president in the Democratic primary. Right? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
They still, it does not matter how many staff members come out with stories of abuse. None of them covered it. None of them will touch it. That's
amazing to me. That's amazing.
They can't.
They're just going to keep promoting her and pretending none of that is happening.
No, you gotta understand the liberals idolize the girl boss. Remember? They see Marianne as slaying it. Fucking sticking it to the patriarchy by being mean to their workers.
And then after that, there was some disagreement around that one. And, because it sounds like you're being more right wing than left wing. So there's arguments on both sides. I understand that, but the whole idea was let's have a Democratic faction which fights like the Tea Party fights Republican leadership. We want Democrats to fight Democratic leadership to go in a more progressive.
Can you pause it there?
American people.
Yeah, 1 second.
And then
so he says, now listen, this is the creator of the organization that we're talking about has collapsed. And when we're talking about, we'll get to the article in a second, where we're talking about the layoffs, massive layoffs. So he's saying they wanted a Democratic Tea Party. Now, why is he, because at this time the Tea Party was a little bit more popular, the name at least. Now, why would they want a Democratic Tea Party? What about the Tea Party do you want to emulate on the other side? Because now when you hear them talk about the Justice Democrat or this strategy of getting power through the Democratic Party, they seem to forget this part. Because the whole essence, the whole stitch, the whole persona of the Tea Party was being adversarial to their own party. So that's what he wanted to do, because he felt like, listen, I'm inspired. FDR, you know, he's adding a lot to this. David Sirota's been working with him for the story for this, so he's adding a lot to it. But the point being made that is initially what they wanted to start out to do, and that's what they sold all of us on, and that has been the expectation. And now they want to, now all these years, they've moved the goalposts to pretend like that's not the expectation. And you remember classically, before I pass it back to the panel or to Nick, if you want to start the video, Nina Turner saying, they've all we got. What are we going to do if we throw them away? Remember the video with the Humanist Report that would famously kind of went viral in a bad way? Yeah. So, you know, I passed it back to
it was all about the dollars, though, at the end of the day, because look, you had the 2016 movement that I think surprised everyone. I mean, who could forget the day when Bernie Sanders showed up on TYT, for example, and the explosion of viewership and subscribers all of their videos got throughout that primary and even through that election. But the thing is, you have to keep it going. You have to remain relevant. And their whole idea was to pump up these other individuals as the next Bernie. They're trying to find their next face, their next front card. And it was all about the dollars. Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, DSA. It was all about money because they wanted to milk people for their hard-earned dollars. That's all it was, unfortunately.
Sorry, my bad, Cal. I just want to read this comment about Jay, part of the RB and family. Jay says the Tea Party will astroturf like a motherfucker. Kyle leaves that part out. They were controlled opposition from the very beginning, almost like the Justice Democrats. So I guess Kyle was onto something. He had a model.
Yeah, he was. Well, there you go.
Well, I would actually push back, because even the Tea Party was able to get some things that they wanted, and they made Boehmer's life a living hell. I mean, God, he still has PTSD. Was dealing with the Tea Party, so at least they somewhat were able to make their speaker's life a miserable. Yes, they did.
They made people quit.
They made people quit.
Like they made some GOP leadership quit. Like Paul Ryan ended up. Was like, fuck this shit, man. I'm tired of these assholes.
Well, they got rid of they primary. What was his name? Is Eric Cantor, right? Who was like a ranking.
That was their first big win.
Right.
Getting rid of Eric Cantor.
Yeah, we can get back to the video. I'll let you guys have anything else. But let's get back to it. We still got a lot covered.
So the second name, I believe we were toying with New Deal Democrats. Again, that's the ode to FDR.
Get the fuck
then
off
I think
that.
Eventually we went to Justice Party Democrats, and then we settled on Justice Democrats. So anyway,
Thank God they didn't do that one.
You know, I was on the board, as was Jank. We never took a penny for doing any of this because we just wanted to do the right thing for the country. This wasn't about us personally. And we were involved in every single board meeting. You know, I wrote the platform for it. You had Shoykot and Corbin brought in all these candidates, and we punched way above our weight for the amount of money we were able to raise. But at the time, it was all small dollar donations. It was you guys donating, and we punched way above our weight. We got AOC to get rid of Joe Crowley. You know, there's a number of Justice Democrats who are there now. Ilhan Omar, Rashid
get to the point.
The list goes on and on. You guys know the deal. So here we are today, and what they say in this article is they're laying off 9 of their 20 staffers. Donations have dried up for Justice Democrats. Now, Marin's also goes on to point out, well, it also dried up for Planned Parenthood, the Sierra Club. Like, this is sort of across the board.
Can you pause it
There
here?
are
It dried up for Planned Parenthood and Sierra Club. These are all Democrat adjacent organizations, along with
What kind of
DSA,
excuse is that anyway?
along with but just think about that. Why are donations drying up for Democratic aligned organizations? Is it because they have not delivered on
Even for
anything?
the libs? Even for the libs. What
Yeah.
happened to Roe? What happened to Roe? Even the things that their people care about, they didn't deliver on.
Nope.
We're gonna hit
None.
the streets, Russell. We're gonna hit the streets once they overthrow Roe.
Oh man,
They're gonna hold their feet to the fire.
Chicago.
Remember?
Jesus Christ.
We're
They're gonna
gonna
hold their
raise the
feet to the
ruckus.
fire. Yeah, oh yeah. They're bringing the ruckus.
Well,
They're
what's
bringing the
also
ruckus.
interesting too is you could tell by his body language that he's trying to do everything he can to not make Justice Democrats look bad, but still it's like I can't believe this is happening because
What does that deflection have to do anything to your point? Like
he was kicked out. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know why he's praising this organization when they kicked out Cenk and Kyle for stupid reasons, by the way.
Well, did they kick out Kyle or he resigned in solidarity?
Yeah,
when they kicked out Cenk?
Solidarity's resigned. Yeah,
he resigned in solidarity. Why in God's name are you praising people that gave you the middle finger and didn't realize that Cenk and Kyle at the time had the largest platforms for online independent media? If anything, I would be like, well, you know what? I tried helping these people out. We built it up. Kyle admits he wrote the platform. So there you go. So already that's the reason why it probably failed anyway.
There's a pattern of behavior there. Kid, there's a pattern of behavior there.
Yeah.
Because the same way that Kyle was kicked out of the Justice Democrats, and you're like, I had no issue with that. I'm gonna still promote you guys. The same way that Bernie Sanders kicked him off his show. He's like, all right, thank you, sir. Thank you for coming on my show, sir. I will leave, sir. No, I have no problem with that, sir. Like, no self-esteem whatsoever. But anyway, let's continue.
nation is drying up. The Sunrise Movement, of course, also laid off 35 of their 100 staffers. They point out in the piece 62% of Justice Dems donations are small dollar donations. And the head of Justice Democrats, Alexandra Rojas, she takes very little pay compared to other people who are in a similar position and running a political group like this. She gets paid $81,000 a year.
Who cares?
And,
she doesn't deserve a penny.
They just couldn't.
Yeah, that's not bad for being a total fucking loser.
Pay the bills. They were forced to lay off 9 of their 20 members. He also goes on to say there's now dark money groups that are affiliated with the establishment Democrats who are spending big to beat JD candidates. We saw this with AIPAC and AIPAC-related groups and other groups who are like anything to defeat people who are even mildly more progressive than the establishment Democrats. And this cycle...
That's not the reason why, Kyle. Are you playing like AIPAC? No. People woke up and saw these people for who they are. Are you pretending that there's some sort of hit job, but the Justice Democrats are taking down by the establishment? No. It's because we see through them because they do not fight. They are tools of the establishment. Will you guys really have complaints if AOC tried to stop the Ukraine war and she couldn't? Imagine if AOC tried to start a movement for Medicare for all. I mean, she was in the streets trying to be in marches and she was not successful. Do you think we would be attacking her? No, we'd be allied with her and we'd be pushing through and trying to make it work. We attack them not because they failed, because they don't try. If they forced to vote on Nancy Pelosi and that shit did not work, you think we'd be mad at them?
No,
I don't understand.
Here's another thing too. It's like, holy cow, you guys actually made it happen. Matter of fact, we saw force the vote happen with the Republicans and the Freedom Caucus, and I'm just thinking, Jesus Christ, AOC, you and those other 14 other Democratic lawmakers could have done the same thing if you actually worked together, but they're not. They're not going to do it. The Justice Democrats got people that would just look pretty and convince people to empty up their wallets so that they can continue to move along. So Kyle's just right here looking sad and disheartened because now his baby and his little moneymaker is no longer relevant. Again, it all comes down to dollars. Kyle only cares about the dollars. And Kyle, why the hell you got your play buttons right behind you? Do you think that makes you look special? I just noticed that right there. He's got a silver and gold play buttons. Yeah. And take that shit down.
Let me insert this question. Let me insert this question as we finish up. Maybe play 2 more minutes of the video. But this is the question here. Actually, I didn't mean to roll it across, but I can read it. It says, is it fair to say the refusal to implement forced vote was the beginning of the end for the Justice Democrats. Is that fair to say? Like, because I would like to think that the failure of Nina Turner from being elected twice, being that she is kind of Democratic, Democrat adjacent, or at least just a Democrat adjacent, her inability to get elected twice, that wasn't the beginning of the end. That was sort of at the tail end. It was the reason. Yeah. I think forced to vote sort of showed their ass. And it kind of dissuaded people. But what does everybody think about that before we finish out that?
Like, what was your question? What was your question again?
Is it fair? Scrolling at the bottom, is it fair to say that the refusal to implement forced to vote was the beginning of the end for the Justice Democrats?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That was it.
But that was up to that point. Look, she was driving all the right people crazy. Pelosi did that disgusting article with Maureen Dowd where she spent like 3 paragraphs on her shoes, and she dismissed the squad. They're green, whatever. Right around that time, we were all in on this. I mean, most of us, I'm assuming you guys too. Like, yeah, we got our people in there. They're driving Pelosi crazy. We would have stayed with them to the end. And not only that, you know what? Yeah, she was getting bad press from Fox News, but AOC was pretty popular then in the country in general. Because if there's anything Donald Trump proved, if you drive the establishment crazy, there are a lot of people who will like you no matter what you're saying. Mm-hmm. You could be like, yeah, John McCain, I prefer people who get captured. You don't like it? Who don't get captured? You don't like it? Fuck you. And you got people who are just going to be like, just because he stood up to them, I like it, even if what he said was repulsive. So she was actually winning over a lot of people at that time. They got crushed. Right when the Medicare for All thing came up and they start talking about we're playing the long game. And I think a lot of us, it's very Lucy on the football, man. I mean, a lot of us were still waiting for that football. Like, oh, yeah, okay, well, let's see what committee they get on. They didn't get on no committees. They didn't get anything for that. They got nothing for that. And the only thing I want to add, just to be fair, what the Freedom Caucus people don't have to face is real pressure from the media and corporate America, because in the end, they don't want to tax anybody. They don't want to do things that are any real threat to real power. So they don't get the kind of pressure that the people we sent in there got. That's no justification for them caving to it, but it is an explanation for what, if you're being honest, you have to say it is harder to stand up for Medicare for all than it is to bitch about the budget and threaten to hold up budget negotiations when in the end you're not really threatening the people who run shit with any of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, well, no, I was just going to say we are going to do the AOC sunscreen thing, right? Because that's
we'll touch on that again. Yeah, we'll touch on that again. Yes,
because that's actually related to force the vote in a way. It's sort of a bookend, because now she's actually telling people call the switchboard and demands imported sunscreen, right? Where 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago now. When she was asked to apply that same pressure in the forced to vote situation, she said no, right? And so I think, those are two kind of bookends in a way.
You know what's interesting about forced to vote, looking back at it, when Jimmy Dore first proposed it, I didn't know what to really make of it at first. And then as soon as I did, the thing that liberals hate the most, and that is read and do my own research, I realized like this is a good tactic, and it's from DSA. It's an organization that endorsed AOC in the first place. How is it that AOC wasn't even informed about this, not even willing to take it? And as soon as she was starting to be hostile towards it, and as soon as Cenk and Sam Cedar began carrying water for the progressives in Congress, and they weren't doing that, and it's like, okay, well, now there's no incentive to help the Democrats. Cenk, you're telling us to keep our powder dry. AOC is saying that this is violence. Well, then why do we need to stick our necks out for you when you won't do a damn thing? If you're not going to fight for us, there's no incentive for any one of us here that's on this panel right now, or anybody watching this show right now, to stick their neck out for any quote unquote progressive in the Democratic Party, because they show that they're not going to fight. In fact, dare I say it, AOC just wants to show up to work, clock in, clock out.
I actually want to add something to that, because I will push back slightly. Forced to vote was one thing that woke a lot of people up. I will add the Ukraine war. That's a big one that changed that. And the reason why I say that, because we don't bend to civility politics, we always call these people on the left out. You know what I mean? Like we don't shy away from quote unquote left infighting. And you guys know there are a lot of professional managerial class people who tend not to criticize Bernie Sanders and AOC. But you notice the Ukraine war was the thing that that literally was the camel that broke the straw that broke the camel's back. Because there were people like Norman Finkelstein, people who like criticizing Bernie and AOC is above me. Like, you guys know these people, and people I respect, like Norman Finkelstein is like me, one of those people. When Bernie and AOC voted to support the Ukraine war, people like him and Aaron Mate. I remember Aaron Mate used to be on the Jimmy Dore show, and I remember and I got a lot of respect for Aaron, but he used to say stuff like, "Y'all are not ready to say Fraud Squad yet. I'm not ready to say fuck Bernie Sanders yet." Then the second they voted for Ukraine war, Aaron was like, "Fraud Squad, fuck Bernie Sanders." Like, there was a lot of these people that were gentle on Bernie and AOC that immediately turned.
Well, that's a great point, and that speaks to a lot of why Kyle sounds like, some of us used to sound 5 years ago, because he, like many in the Bernie movement, like many out of DSA, have no take on that. They have no take on the Ukraine war. It just like it. You would think it's not happening if you watch their show. They never cover it. They never opine on it. They never tweet about it. Nothing. You would think it's not happening.
Yeah. Anyway, let's CJ.
In their atmosphere. Yeah. Not yet. No. We're gonna go to the second video, but let me bring up the article so we can read a couple of parts of it, because it does bear a little bit of a discussion by the group. And the title, of course, is "Layoffs at Justice Democrats Shake Progressives," and of course, by the Hill. So let's read just a little bit of it. Let me scroll down here. So, large-scale layoffs at top left-wing organizations are underscoring progressive challenges in the Biden era, with major figures becoming despondent about what the future of their movement could look like. Let me pause here already, because let's read this again. It says large-scale layoffs at a top left-wing organization are underscoring, this is the part, underscoring progressive challenges. Anytime you have corporate organizations, when they're using stuff like challenges, like when they say Biden has a few challenges, that means he has a lot of problems. That's their like word to like squash what it really means. Progressives has had big problems in the Biden era. That's what that should say. With major figures becoming despondent about what the future of their movement could look like. Justice Democrats, the upstart turned powerhouse group that helped insurgents win seats in Congress, recently made significant operational changes and cuts to its workforce, prompting a debate amongst leftists about the tactical hurdles to carrying out their vision. And anytime you guys, I can't see you, so let me know if you want to stop and comment. The reshuffle came amid signs the movement is not as energized as it was even 7 years ago, as Democrats across the spectrum seek to coalesce around President Biden ahead of possible rematch against former President Trump. And here's a quote, and this is from Cenk. They quote Cenk in this article. Quote, "The people who ran as Justice Democrats all promised to fight the establishment on our behalf. In fact, it was their number one promise." And this is what we were alluding to earlier. "And they chose not to do that," end quote, said Cenk Uygur, host of the Young Turks, who has been outspoken about the left's flank shortcomings. Quote, that's devastating, end quote, Uyghur said, end quote again, it took all the wind out of our movement, end quote. After Trump took control of the White House in 2016, Democratic groups tailored their efforts to rectify the assault against marginalized Americans under his administration. The desire for a party-wide response that outrage inspired a new wave of activism with plenty of money coming in. And this last paragraph, before I pass it to the group, and we can close this segment and move on to sort of the second part, which is the Bernie movement dead? Justice Democrats had a different focus. Unlike the groups that were exclusively focused on defeating Republicans and the right-wing agenda, niche left shops turned their sights inward. Organizing were both inspired by Senator Bernie Sanders' bid and infuriated he lost the nomination to Hillary Clinton. They sought to change the composition of the Democratic Party. So let's ask ourselves, with these layoffs, did the Justice Democrats in their efforts and their strategy to change the makeup of the Democratic Party, can we say they were effective or successful?
Well, it was obviously a massive failure, and the thing about that article, I mean, there's so much to say about that article, but I'll be as brief as I possibly can. You cannot affect the kind of change that the Justice Democrats were hoping to affect as a marginalized subset of a giant superstructure that is bound to swallow whatever movement you actually build up inside it. I mean, that is just structurally flawed from the outset. That's why we are post-duopoly. As for this outrage about the marginalized groups being victimized by Trump, the marginalized groups victimized by Trump are being more marginalized and more victimized now under Biden than they were under Donald Trump. So that was fake activism. It was fake outrage. It was all bullshit, which is part of why some of the so-called Justice Democrat factions didn't buy into it and eventually left the group once the group ultimately was swallowed, inevitably, as it was bound to be, by the larger superstructure called the Democratic Party. So there was a giant design flaw from the outset. It never really had any chance of succeeding. And I just have to say, I'm sorry if this is somewhat unrelated, but the fact that Cenk Uygur is now admitting to mainstream press outlets, well, that took all the wind out of this movement, just as his network is pivoting in a more right-wing direction, right, with the Anna Kasparian, right, now moderating on the social issues. And I'm not even, look, we have actually defended Anna on the substance of those pivots, right? So I'm not even saying she's wrong. But you see what opportunists they are. Right as they notice that all of the gas is out of the Justice Democrats train, that's when he lets Anna go off and explore some more right-of-center territory, right? They're just such snakes. You know what I mean? Like, it's not a coincidence that he's doing this network pivot right as he's admitting that Justice Democrats was a failure.
He's also signaling to donors, too, that he needs money. He's probably signaling to people that, hey, if you help us out here, Anna could do more hot takes and we'll obey. Because after a while, because look, when Katzenberg gave that money to Cenk, the thing is about making an investment, you have to pay it back. Like, that wasn't just a free lunch for Cenk and them to use for TYT.
Yeah, didn't he go on Patrick Bet David and try to reach out, try to form some kind of alliance?
Yes, and he also went on that show to also say publicly, and again, I can't believe he forgot this, but Cenk said on that show that there was no election fraud that took place during the 2016 primary, and TYT forgot. Thank God for Roger Meadows and a few other people in my audience who told me, well, wait, TYT did a documentary video about the California primary of 2016. They did a documentary video. TYT, it's on their network, Rebel Headquarters Network. It's I think it has like maybe 600 or 800,000 views on it right now. But
they did some great work. Look, one of the best videos in indie progressive media history. If there is a hall of fame for people in this space, definitely one of the best videos ever done in this entire space was Cenk Uygur's rant about the Nevada convention, where Barbara Boxer, flipped off the crowd and they accused Bernie supporters of throwing chairs. Cenk Uygur went on a 10-minute rant about how that was complete nonsense and was all lies. It was all bullshit. And it was great. I mean, so they actually did a lot of great work back then about the very thing, Kit, that you were just talking about. But ultimately, that was just one incarnation among many of the network. And so I think that really sort of made itself very obvious, especially now with these comments, where it's just, I mean, now he's saying, well, now he's able to say they failed long after they failed. Because what do these guys do in this space? What do these hustlers do? They milk everything for every ounce they can get out of it, right? So, of course, they're going to milk the AOC thing until it's completely obvious to everybody that it was fake all along, right? And then they'll move on to the next thing. That's how you run a media company online, which he's done successfully for, 15 years now?
Yeah, but see, eventually people realize that consistency matters, and sooner or later, like, that's all dries up. Like, if conservatives or anyone that's maybe wants to go back to TYT, if you haven't learned your lesson the first time, then you're going to get swindled again, because all what Cenk wants is money for his network, and he's made some serious stupid gambles that have backfired in his face. And again, the name of his book, Justice is Coming. That's the lamest title I ever heard in my entire life.
So gentlemen, let's pivot.
Give the devil his due. They are the Madonna of alternative media. They have a new face every couple of years, and so far they've been ahead of the trends.
So what I was gonna say, let's pivot. We're gonna cover the second question, which is Bernie Sanders movement dead, and then we're gonna move on to Nick's segment, Joe Biden in Hawaii. So what's happening in Hawaii? So that's what's coming up. So Nick, if you could pull up that second clip I sent, the second video clip, and we'll pivot here. And this should be roughly about the same amount of time, maybe a little bit less. Now, this other video has a lot of good stuff in it that Freddie kind of covers. So we'll maybe play about 2 minutes of that, and then we'll fast forward it a little bit. So let's play maybe the first 3 minutes of it, Nick, and then we'll fast forward to catch another 3 minutes later on. In the video, but the question, 1 second, let me set it up. So the question, so Freddie is the guy who wrote the article, AOC is just another Democrat. Now, you may not have known, or maybe Nick knows, because Nick is kind of in tune with more of liberals than I am, or at least they're in your feed because they are always coming after you. This guy, I guess his article sort of sent more shockwaves than we thought, because if you notice, this guy was brought on by the professional managerial left who do podcasts. They all brought him on, from Katie Halper to Bad Fade to we're about to cover the Kyle Kalinske one, where he brings them on too. But you notice the professional managerial class left decided to bring him on because it's almost a critique of what they've been advocating for. It's not almost, it is a critique of what they've been advocating for. So it's sort of like, it's one thing for all of us who have been saying the same thing. It's another thing for somebody who they feel is an equal to them. I'm not saying Katie or Bree think we're not equal, but I'm just saying people in the professional managerial class is another thing for somebody in their own class and their own space to talk or write about it. So it feels like what he's saying is now finally being taken, or what we've been saying and what he is now saying is finally being taken seriously. So the question is the Bernie Sanders movement dead? And let's play the video, Nick, and we can pause, stop, and start if we need to.
Sort of grappling with the fact that, the whole Bernie thing appears to have petered out, and we don't have a lot to show for it. Bhaskar Sankara wrote a piece, I think, last year, where he sort of talked about the fact that, it definitely appears that we're sort of in a unhealthy stasis at this point. So that notion is out there. But, I emphasize this in the piece for a point, like, it's not just that it's annoying to me when you get all of the sort of AOC and Bernie, like, sort of, mythology and, we have to support our socialist champions stuff at the same time as everyone is saying we can't do anything. They're still fucking asking for donations all the time, right? Like,
pause it right there. And I think, Nick, you allude to this part a lot, Nick, or you're the person that I can think of who have talked about this point, maybe in a different sort of phrasing, but he is also he's upset. And this is what you asked Marianne Williamson, is a question similar to this. After all the money we've donated, like, what, you asked the question, like, why are we supposed to invest in you when we didn't get anything from it? And what he's saying here, and he kind of goes into more detail later in the video, but we're not going to see that part. But he's saying, how are you out of one mouth saying, you're our only hope, and we need to support you by donating, and then at the same time you're saying you're basically powerless, you're a junior representative, you don't have the numbers to be that powerful, but you're taking our money. So that's where the rub is to me, and I think that's what Nick has alluded to many times, and this is the reason why we went so hard at Marianne Williamson, because we didn't want the working class to be taken advantage of financially by this continued grift by the professional managerial class left.
And CJ, remember, I asked Marianne Williamson about this, and the professional managerial left, the Marianne Williamson, the Kyle Kalinske, they don't care about resource management or strategy for the left. Because I asked Marianne Williamson about resource management, if we have concerns about donating towards politicians. And her answer was, if you feel that way, don't vote for me. That's her answer to that question. Because they don't want you part of the club if you actually care about strategy. They just want the dumb left that they cultivate that's all about vibe. We just throw money at these people and hope they save us.
Well, ballot access is mythical stuff.
And also having your staffers sit in Zoom calls as you try and get therapeutic healing from venting out your anger and disappointment at them. Isn't that another story that's also been happening? Like, she would have these meetings that would last for like hours on end, and she's just crying and verbally yelling at these people who are working for her, and she's using them as their own therapist or something like that. I mean, is that also taking place? Because I know that she has had a lot of emotional issues and outbursts towards everyone that's been working for her so far.
Or former employees. Go ahead, though.
Anyway, let's continue.
Party enough power. My natural response is, okay, why did I make all those $27 donations? And, when I first started donating to Bernie when I was a grad student, right? Like the whole Bernie machine hoovered up millions of dollars off of small donors, which sounds very noble when you're talking about how Washington gets funded. But then when you turn around and say, oh, we can't get anything done, it seems kind of malign to me, right? Like you took those donations and you sent the fundraising emails in which you talked about everything that you're going to get done and how powerful you are. And now you're saying, oh, we can't do anything. That seems pretty.
That is what you call a grifter, ladies and gentlemen.
Right, exactly.
You know the things they call workers and poor people who call out politicians. The slur that they call independent citizen journalists because they have the audacity of having a voice. How dare you have a voice in political discourse? What are you, a grifter? So the professional managerial class call us grifters. Meanwhile, they are doing quite literally the definition of a grift.
I don't know, Nick. How many super chats have you gotten tonight? What have you made? $35 on this stream so far? I don't know.
That cash money.
Yeah, cash.
Where's your monocle?
Right, exactly.
Anyway, let's continue because that's the grift. The definition of a grift is when you are making money, you're raising money for a cause you don't really believe in. They don't really believe they're creating a political revolution, but they will take your money. And then they were like, "Oh, well, what can we do, man? We gotta vote for Joe Biden. We gotta support Ukraine aid." You know what I mean? But anyway, let's continue.
Pretty cruel to me.
Yeah, so this is good because this is the area where we disagree. So most of your piece when I'm reading it, I'm going.
He's back. He's back in the Brady Bunch house.
Yep, because as you said, you're cataloging the votes and the specific points where you're like, messed up here, messed up here. What are you trying to do? What's your identity? Are you really an outsider? Are you trying to be an insider? You're trying to win higher office, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I still ultimately, the part where I disagree was that last part where I felt like you sort of fed into what I would describe as the doomerism and the nihilism on the left, which is a pervasive problem on the left that we always have to, I feel like, combat. Whereas your argument seemed to be, well, what if those people were kind of right? And so is that a fair categorization of your argument?
Yeah, I mean, look.
See, that's a shit answer.
I grew up in a far lefty environment.
No, I was just going to say, that's a shitty answer to say, yeah. The right answer to that question is to say, no, it's not doomerism and nihilism to admit that Justice Democrats failed. Nihilism is to commit to the same failed strategy over and over again. There's nothing nihilistic or doomeristic about giving up on the Democratic Party. That's what Kyle thinks, because Kyle has no political imagination whatsoever. And he feels like if the Democrats fail, so fails any progressive or left of center movement. And so I wish he wouldn't have given him, I mean, maybe he expands upon that. I haven't seen this yet. But I would never concede that giving up on the Democrats means reverting to any sort of like, nihilism. Pardon me. Excuse me.
We explained many times before that the idea that nothing can be done unless we anoint these heroes is the highest form of nihilism.
Exactly. Yes, that's a better way of putting it. Yep.
So what we are being, we are the height of revolutionary optimism. I have a mutual aid. I got the graphic was just made.
I saw that. Looks good.
Meet and greet. I haven't posted yet, but we're gonna share it on YouTube here soon. We feel like there's stuff that can be done. Rome is building a library because he's an optimist. CJ is meeting and organizing with homeless people because he's an optimist.
Right.
He believes there's a reason why we should be doing that. They don't believe. They're like, all right, if we can't win these elections, we're doomed. We're screwed.
Right.
That's their mindset. That's the highest form of doomerism. Our mindset is it doesn't fucking matter who wins in 2024. Trump, Biden, bring them on. Doesn't fucking matter. It literally doesn't matter because we're going to organize no matter what. But their mindset is they go on highs and lows based on who wins, who wins, and who loses the election.
Well, we had Thomas Frank on. He's all afraid. Oh my God, I don't even want to say it. Trump is going to win again. I said, don't be afraid of it. I said,
embrace it. Embrace it.
Embrace it.
We love Thomas Frank. We love Thomas.
I love Thomas Frank too. I love him too. I love him too.
He was kind of timid too when he was on the show. We had the same type of conversation. He was like, trying to turn. It was like, who cares? Like we had the same conversation when he was on here. So, but go ahead, Nick, if you were gonna play.
Yeah, like Murray Kimberly explained on our show last week, and this is what every black leftist understand that scares the shit out a lot of people. We survived Trump, fam. You guys think Donald Trump, after everything the black community been through?
Well, that's what Ajamu Baraka said.
Stupid ass. Hold on, Donald Trump, after everything we've been through, everything, the police state had their boot on our neck, but Donald Trump, that moron, that game show moron, is gonna destroy us. We survived Jim Crow Joe and the crime bill, but Donald Trump's stupid ass is gonna be the end of our community. That's absurd, and that's part of. I gotta be careful here because I was talking about this with Pasta earlier, where a lot of white America centers their issues as the biggest thing ever. Trump is a stress factor for white suburban liberals.
Right.
So that's why they elevate them and like, oh my God, if Trump get in office, it's gonna be the worst thing ever because he stressed them out. But Trump is no different than George W. Bush, than Barack Obama, and then Joe Biden. Our community survived. We will survive if Donald Trump win again. And we will organize. That's called revolutionary optimism. Meanwhile, Kyle's going to have a panic attack if fucking Joe Biden doesn't win in 2020.
Right.
You see the difference? Meanwhile, go ahead, Pedro. We played the.
That's what Ajamu Baraka told you. I don't know if he...
I don't know.
Sorry. Go ahead, kid.
So when we
Wait,
look at
wait,
the when we look at how Trump has been perceived by these managerial people, especially people like Kyle, they view him as the end all be all threat to the republic. He isn't. He's a symptom of it. There's a greater poison in our democracy, in our republic, and that is the dynastic families that have made political careers for themselves for like 40 plus years. And then, of course, you have their successors. You have the Dan Crashaws, you have the AOCs, you have the MTGs waiting, standing by for people like Nancy or Turtle Boy Mitch McConnell to eventually pass away. See, it's not Trump. He's an easy target to be made into the villain. For somebody like Kyle, oh, he can make clickbait videos and say, this is what Trump is doing. It's fascist state. All what Trump did is take the pretty neoliberal mask off of all the things that previous presidents have done. All what Trump has done is just tell the truth. And that is, hey, the reason why we're going to war is because there's oil in Syria. That's the only reason why. Yes, the system is corrupt. I've used it. Trump just reveals everything, and it upsets the neoliberal establishment because, oh no, that's going to impact people thinking, well, wait a minute, hold on. This has been going on long before Trump. Trump isn't the bad guy. You might call him a bad person, fine, but he's not the architect of this system. And Trump is, the way I view it, it would be more beneficial for a real progressive movement if Trump were to get reelected into office. Because, again, it would show for a fact, and again, it still doesn't matter, though, but it would show for the fact that the Democrats are incapable of holding true to their values. They inspire nothing, and it's time for us to break away from it and do other things other than wasting our time with politicians that don't even have our best interests at heart.
Well, also, when you look at the behavior of Democrats in these Jim Jordan hearings about the weaponization of the government and censorship, as people in the commentary space and people who believe that without the ability to communicate, without speech, you have nothing else. Everything else proceeds from there. You can't really make the case that Trump is a more existential threat than a second term of Biden. I dread to think what psychopaths like Plaskett and Schultz will do to our ability to have shows and platforms like this if they are empowered, God forbid, with a takeover of Congress, the Senate, and the presidency, the trifecta, without any interference. You've put the left in a position where it is really not clear that it's better for us or our interests, given those choices, that you don't get Donald Trump.
Anyway, let's continue the video and then we can chime in afterwards. We still got a lot to cover here.
And I still have a network that includes a lot of people who self-identify as communists. Most of them have gray hair now, but they are the kind of people who just say, like, every time that someone exciting comes down the pike in electoral politics, they just say, you're getting fooled again. Lucy's going to pull out the football out from Charlie Brown again. We've been down this path 100 times. You should know better by now than to expect anything. They'll talk about Obama, right? Like, the George W. Bush administration was a horror show from beginning to end. So much awful things happened. Everybody was desperate for change. We got a guy showing up talking about hope and like borrowing slogans from the labor movement in Barack Obama. And he ends up, governing as a like center-right technocrat.
Yeah, Bill Clinton.
And those commies I know said, look, we were right. You should never have believed a Democrat who told you that he was Mr. Hope and Change, and you got the wool pulled over your eyes. And those people said the same thing about Bernie in 2016, and they said the same thing about AOC in 2018. And I have fought,
and they was right, and they were extremely based, by the way,
fought for a long time to maintain a commitment to electoral politics, because I think that it's foolish to abandon that element of the fight for progressive change. And I think that those commies have marginalized themselves, and their politics obviously aren't relevant at all.
Sir, hold up, sir. You just lost me completely. You just lost. Let me explain why he said it's so stupid. And this is what professional managerial class people do all the time. They straw man our argument. I know a ton of communists, Marxist-Leninists, They are the people who advocate for using electoralism. Marx advocated for building socialist third parties. That is what RBN is working on. That is what real Marxist-Leninists are working on, building communist parties. So when you guys keep making this argument where we say, oh, we're not engaging in electoral politics and we are handicapping ourselves, that is false. Just because we don't vote for Democrat and Republican do not mean we gave up on electoral politics. What our argument is we should not engage in this fraudulent capitalist electoral politics system without our own offensive political party. We need a Marxist-Leninist socialist political party. That is the goal. That is, you can make the argument that is electoral politics. Having a political party, even engaging in mutual aid, engaging in activism, and then having someone on the ballot, which I advocate for, giving people someone to vote for after you showed up for them. That is electoral politics, and we advocate leaving the Democratic Party because you guys are wasting time and resources instead of doing this project that we highly agree with. So he is completely strawmanning our argument. So now I question, who are you even talking to? You guys know what's wrong with going to a political party? Like, this is what communists do. Like, we build parties and we take advantage of the system as we have it. But anyway, CJ, I know you want to chime in. Go ahead.
No, what I was going to say is that this guy, Freddie, is way better than most of them, but still understand he still operates in the professional managerial class.
He's still part of that anti-communist
sort of, yeah. He's still like part of that. He still wants to participate in electoral politics through the Democratic Party. So you get what I'm saying? Like, he is still not where we are, but he is a lot further to where we are, closer to where we are than CJ, like Kyle or somebody else. Go ahead.
CJ, think about how many times have we corrected people, literally to their face, where they be like, oh, I heard, and Ryan Grimm is a recent example that we like, yeah, I know you guys' argument is that no electoral politics. I'm like, no, we didn't say that. No, not through the Democratic Party. And they purposely do that, where they say, well, if you don't support the Democrats, that means you must not support electoralism at all. And I support ballot initiatives. I'm in a ballot initiative state. I believe if you're not in a ballot initiative state, guess what your priority should be? Making a ballot initiative state. I think that's something that we should focus on because we can get actual material needs as workers. We got Medicare expansion. We got affordable housing in Missouri. We got recreational marijuana because of ballot initiatives. So my focus on ballot initiatives is electoralism, fam. It's not the way you guys play, though. So they say, oh,
that's why
you guys
are
anti-electoralism. Anyway, I made my point. Let's continue.
Can you fast forward to 1320? This is the second half I wanted to show you. This is the part where Kyle now is going to make the case for the Democratic Party and for why to continue the Bernie Sanders movement. It's about 3 minutes long. Now, I know we're going to stop it because he's going to say a lot of stuff that are achievements that we're going to disagree with. So go ahead, Nick. You can start.
Biden is bad, tap dance. But then also, I feel like this same group of people just brushes aside and ignores and acts like the good things don't exist. And I'm actually shocked at the number of decent things that he did do. I mean, the student loan debt reduction, which he's still fighting for to this day. By now.
My question, I'll be very quick because I want the
video. So you start by naming shit he didn't do.
Right, exactly.
As an example of what he did.
The first thing you name is something he did not actually do.
How many people had their debt reduced? Jesus Christ, what a cock.
I want the video to keep playing, but I just want to quickly insert this. And this is why Kyle politics astound me. And we asked the question, how does a certain narrative or how does a certain take, how does it help our movement? And I want to hear Kyle out because I want you guys to think about this. How does his mindset help our movement? So, I want to say this because he said, well, there's people not getting Biden credit for stuff. And I'm asking you guys this question right now. Why should we give a politician credit for anything when we personally don't feel it in our life? If your life is not improving with their policies, you have zero reason to give them credit for it. Why should we? If you look at Biden infrastructure bill, you're like, man, I don't feel this shit. And when you look at Biden, any one of these Biden bills, right, you're like, I don't feel this shit. If you don't feel it, why should you give them credit? How does that benefit our movement, giving a guy credit that's not doing anything for your life?
Well, sure.
I asked it in a different way to myself. It's funny you have a similar question. I said, I don't understand why is that a thing? Why is it a thing that people aren't giving Joe Biden credit for the minimal thing? And he acknowledges, because I skipped over a lot of the video, but in the video, he goes through some of the bad stuff. He's like, look, I can list some bad stuff he did. And he listed, It's like, but he also has done some good things and people want to acknowledge it. So a person does 250 terrible things and then they do 10. You are wondering, why aren't you giving credit for the 10? That's what it feels like. I'll pass it back.
I don't have to acknowledge if someone does 200 terrible things and they do like what 10 good things. So it's like, okay, but they did 200 terrible things. No, they're not a good person.
Well, and they did. It's the same old Democratic shell game. It's the two mob bosses fighting for your fealty, right? Well, this guy, he's going to shake you down for 300 a week. I'm only going to ask you for 280. So you're supposed to get behind them for that.
Right.
Let's continue.
Don't exist, and I'm actually shocked at the number of decent things that he did do. I mean, the student loan debt reduction, which he's still fighting for to this day by now invoking the Higher Education Act, the $1,400 stimulus checks. He massively reduced the drone war. He pulled the troops out of Afghanistan.
Oh, God.
The Democrats actually slipped into the IRA that they overturned the Supreme Court decision to stop the EPA from regulating carbon emissions.
Oh,
That's a huge
Wait a minute. What about Roe v. Wade? Roe v. Wade, you stupid idiot. God damn it. Oh, my God.
He put that in the IRA, but
that was the Supreme
why don't you
Court
talk
too.
about what he put in the other bill that they don't talk about? I think it was the debt ceiling that completed the pipeline deal that Joe Manchin wanted to have done. He couldn't get it done in any other legislation. They snuck it into the debt ceiling.
Even
what are you talking about?
Even the IRA opens up 600 million acres of ocean area to drilling.
So
even the IRA opens up, once again, 600 million acres of ocean area to drilling projects. Add to that the Willow Project, largest drilling project approved in the history of federal lands. Add to that something Kyle will never talk about, the Nord Stream pipeline, which was the greatest carbon bomb in human history, the greatest emission of greenhouse gases caused by man-made action in the history of the planet. And so this idea, the IRA gave the Supreme Court the power to regulate the EPA. I mean, we've talked about this in the past. I don't remember if it was on this show or ours, but I mean, it's just such a joke. Everything he mentioned there was such an utter joke.
A half measure,
even the winding down of the drone program and the Afghanistan pullout, that was all in service of funding World War III, right? I mean,
he's still seeing
nothing there made any sense. Nothing, not a single thing.
And not only that, like lying by omission is a thing, guys. Like, so when I hear Kyle's rant here, it is not unreasonable to call him a liar because he's lying by omission. He pretend that Biden is good on climate, even though we just brought up all the million reasons. I was just about to bring up Nord Stream. I'm glad you did. Can you guys know that Joe Biden is the biggest eco-terrorist in modern human history? In modern human history, no one ever committed an attack, maybe of all of human history. No one ever committed an assault on the environment the way he did after the Nord Stream pipeline bombing. But Kyle's going to talk about some fucking bullshit and some legislation that does not matter considering that in the Willow Project. Brings up Afghanistan, ignores the fact that he's literally starving the Afghanistan citizens by seizing billions of their profit. And they said, well, we got to do this so it doesn't legitimize the Taliban government. But no, these are ordinary Afghanistan citizens who have businesses that was forced to shut down. People can't feed themselves. Like this is a direct attack on Afghanistan citizens because they want the Afghanistan people to turn against the Taliban. Right. But Kyle is praising that. Of course. They're like, you can't talk about Biden's Afghanistan policy without bringing that up. He is starving millions of people in Afghanistan. And you praise him for pulling out Afghanistan?
Yeah.
There was a study that showed that more people died recently because of Biden seizing their assets in the Afghanistan war in the last 10 to 15 years. He's getting credit for that? That's a grotesque lie by omission. That's why I said earlier, he's just a rank propagandist at this point. Absolute rank propaganda.
Well,
Anyway,
we-
let's continue.
We
Well,
know-
this
we
is
know
typical
Kyle-
behavior for Biden too. By the way, it's just again, it's more of like no comment for Hawaii, no comment for people of East Palestine, Ohio, people who have been suffering again through environmental disasters. Let's even look at Flint, Michigan. Still no safe, clean drinking water. I mean, all the stuff that Kyle is praising about Biden, Biden doesn't give a damn about people. He doesn't even know where he's at half the time. At this point, Kyle is either dumb. He is trying to recreate his imagery, as Keen said about TYT, or it's just that he has convinced himself that this new reality of the Democratic Party and where it's at is the correct mindset. Maybe watch, he's going to probably have a mental breakdown pretty soon.
Well, we did a half-hour video showing him straight out, no other way to interpret it, lying to his audience about Marianne. So we know that he does sit on there and consciously lie. It's not that he's misguided or his politics have changed. He straight up lies to his audience with full awareness that he's lying to them. To what end? To maintain good relationships with money people, powerful people who he hopes will maybe put him on a platform one day, or to maintain the social standing that the money he's making now on this platform allows him. Who knows? But we know that Kyle, from just breaking down some of his videos, there's no way these are honest mistakes or naive politics. No, he's straight up lying to his audience. The only real question is, why is he doing it? What's the motive?
That's why
Money.
Nick calls him a
Money.
propagandist. But
Money.
let's get to the video. Go.
Yeah,
go
we
ahead.
gotta continue. Let's continue. We gotta continue this clip.
The EPA is not allowed to do that. They did project labor agreements for 200,000 construction workers, which raises their pay. He did a $15 minimum wage through an executive order for federal contractors and federal employees. He did gun reform with red flag laws and closing the boyfriend loophole. And that's all not sufficient,
Oh
but
my
it's way more
God.
than I ever thought he would get, especially with the small majority he has compared to Obama, who had a super majority and got dick. Put Ketanji Brown Jackson on the court. George Floyd executive order, which created
Let's
a
let him list
registry
more,
of
and we'll
abusive
comment
cops.
later. Let's let him
The
list more.
NLRB has
Let
been
him cook.
genuinely pro-labor in a way that we never saw from Obama. The PACT Act, which did health care for veterans exposed to toxic burn pits. There's been a net increase of 800,000 manufacturing jobs. The CHIPS Act, which is debatable in terms of how much of it is corporate welfare and how much of it is legit, but it's definitely led to an increase in job creation, manufacturing job creation, and it's definitely something that some very important swing states are looking at favorably because it's helping them out economically. 15% corporate minimum tax rate was part of the IRA. Used to have these corporations who would pay literally nothing in taxes or get a negative tax rate, which is a net subsidy. Now they have to pay a minimum of 15%. Tax credits for electric vehicles was in the IRA, which you know, they're doing a lot of like made in America green jobs, which again, it's not sufficient, but it's way more than I ever expected from him. He did $64 billion for Obamacare credits, and he banned temporary junk health insurance plans, which were basically a giant scam that Trump allowed people to expand for 3 years. So anyway, I look at all this stuff and I'm going, look, it's a lot more complex and complicated and nuanced.
And I'm saying it just real quick because he bring up the electric vehicle thing, and I see Rokan and them do this all the time. I sold cars, guys, for 4 years. No work. There's not workers buying new electric vehicles, especially now.
Mm-hmm.
And I know because I saw how much money every single person made who I bought cars. And the motherfuckers buying these hybrids and these electric cars are not proletariat. On all their financial forms, it was some form of management. So when Cal talking about electric vehicle tax subsidies, that's not a policy that help us at all. Just heads up. You in my realm now. That's bullshit. Yeah. The workers got robbed at these dealerships. The proletariat, the bourgeoisie, the management class that could afford these electric vehicles got everything. The government gave them everything. Low interest rates and shit. We paying 10 to 15%, 20%. But he praised a policy that is top down that helped the bourgeoisie, not the workers. But sorry, that was ridiculous, but I'll let it continue.
Then just let's throw our hands up and let's say, fuck it, none of this works anymore. Because I do think Biden doing these things, he's a product of his environment. And just like back in the 1990s when the whole thing was like the crime scare and he was doing the crime bill and all that stuff, it's like all of the anger in the ether and the calls for Medicare for all and we want higher wages and unions, etc. It's like that has translated to one extent or another in a president who is far more progressive than he was as a senator. And so the thing that frustrates me is that I do feel like a lot of these people you're describing, they just don't acknowledge the reality. They just like ignore the good parts, only focus on the bad parts, and then use that to further feed what I would describe as their cynicism and their nihilism. I'm happy people should be skeptical, but it's when the skepticism crosses into cynicism that I'm like, you're just not being honest about the reality of what's going on. So where in that do you disagree with any of that?
Pause it there. So, and I'm going to bring up the last part of this video. It's only 30 seconds. So I'm going to take yours down, Nick. And I'm going to play the last 30 seconds here. What he's saying there, I just don't understand. So, no, I'm sorry. Let me explain it this way. He basically is saying that he gets the critique. He doesn't get why your critique leads you to saying F the Democratic Party. He's saying your critique, he doesn't get you how it leads you to doomerism, how it leads you to not wanting to, how it leads you. He calls, when he says nihilism, that means the not participating in helping the Democratic Party. I'm starting to pick up when they use certain words, they use nihilism when you say you don't want to help the Democratic Party specifically. Even if you say you're helping the Green Party, that doesn't register to them. That's just nihilism to them. So I'll play this last part in a second, but what say all of you, because it sounded like a couple of you wanted to chime in when we stopped it right here before I played this last 30 seconds.
All of this stuff that Kyle is bringing up is nothing but fake smoke screens. Okay, that is all what he's showing in regards to what Biden has accomplished, because it hasn't uplifted people from poverty. We're seeing the price of milk and other goods continue to rise up. We're still seeing people being evicted from their homes and apartments. We're still seeing small businesses being shut down. We're seeing communities being abandoned. Look what's happening to Maui, Hawaii, for example. I know we're going to talk about that later, but this administration doesn't give a damn. But look at how many things that this entire administration has been doing for the top 1%, for Wall Street, big banks, and corporations. The fact that Kyle Kalinske wants to call the rest of us nihilists shows that he knows that Biden isn't delivering, but he's afraid. He's afraid of losing his relevancy. He's afraid that he's made mistakes now and that no one's going to take him seriously anymore. And nobody should, because when you have to go to bat for Jim Crow Joe, who's been on the wrong side of history since he first got elected into office, tells me all I need to know about your character. You're going to tell people that, oh, we need to take it easy. We should be happy with what we got from Biden. We didn't get anything. We didn't even get crumbs. We have an empty plate from a person who doesn't even know where he's at anymore. For Christ's sakes, Biden is attached to a CPAP machine when he goes to sleep, which means he can't breathe when he's sleeping.
Go ahead, go somebody else. Go ahead.
To be fair, a lot of young people have that problem too, Kit.
I know. But the thing is, at his age, it's gonna mess with his brain more.
Well, I'll grant you that.
Go ahead.
Watching Kyle and listening to that take, as I think you're often forced to wonder, who the fuck watches this? It's no different from the take you'd get from a CNN roundtable. I think what it is if you've ever noticed, coming up, you had your friends who were like all rebellious and doing their rebellious thing. If they were from the burbs when they get a little older, it's like salmon swimming upstream. They go back there. They go back to that way of life, man. They could have had 6 safety pins in their nose when you knew them. You see them 10 years later, man, they're like raking the yard. They go back to what they do. I think the parts of the Bernie movement that really were basically standard issue libs in their heart, that's who this is for. It's they can't go back to the CNN because they were part of the Bernie thing, but real left politics don't actually appeal to them. That's not their background. That's not their mentality. That's not where they're coming from. So Kyle, Crystal, all of this stuff, that's who this is for. I can't imagine who else watches it. It's literally everything he's saying here, the whole formulation. Washington is too tough. The best you could do is the absolute bare minimum. And why aren't people celebrating him? You could watch Meet the Press and hear exactly the same shit.
The same exact thing. Anyone else chiming in before we close this segment here?
Yeah, I'll say something controversial. Bernie, retire. Go away.
All right, let me play the.
I thought
let
Kim
me
was
play
going
the
to say
last-
Bernie must have a great sex game.
All right, let me play the last.
I'm also going to say it does not help that this guy looks dope sick.
Yeah, he does. Ugh.
It
Looks like he needs to drink some water.
It looks
Let
like
me
maybe
play the last 30
Chuck
seconds of
Schumer
it.
worked him over behind the building before this.
Right
segment.
here. So let me play the last 30 seconds, guys. Let's listen.
He's the best we can do. I mean, that's just they don't
So,
do that, right?
But I didn't say that last part, though. Hold on, because I didn't say that last part. In fact, the argument that I'm making is the exact argument that you just said conservatives do. I agree with you. That is what conservatives do. And I want the left to keep doing that. But my fear is that when we feed too much into the doomerism and the nihilism where it denies objectively positive things, that it makes people want to sit on the sidelines and even poo-poo the people who are trying to push the Democrats to be better. That's my point. Hey, y'all, do me a favor.
It's basically is a shield for himself. He's going to be pushing Democrats to do better. And I guess the reason he needs people, like, he don't want you to criticize people that wants to stay in this, keep running their head against the wall. And I guess that's the criticism that he has of Freddie and people in our position that say they call us nihilists, even though we're literally saying we're participating in electoralism through the Green Party. Like, that's still nihilism to them. But I'll pass it to the panel for final words, or Nick, if you want to get to the next topic.
I have one more thing I want to introduce because this flows well. Friend of the show, Turncoat Don, makes amazing videos.
Oh,
yeah.
If you guys think I'll wait for the end to play this, because if you guys think Kyle's a serious person, if you think you watched him before and you think you're crazy because you think you changed, like, what happened? Well, fuck, you used to watch this fucking motherfucker, right? You're not crazy. Like, this guy is a serial gaslighter, and he want to pretend that these old footages of him do not exist. Now, as I say in this tweet, you witnessed so many of these Bernie Sanders progressive. Remember, Kyle Kulinski created the movement, the Progressive Justice Democrat. He was one of the creators of that movement. We have witnessed so many of those people openly sell out. If you wonder what I mean, look at this damning video. This is one of the most damning videos I've seen of anyone ever. I was talking to Nico about that. Like, this is the most damning video I see of anyone, because if I ever got my ass beat by my own argument, I would have to reflect and seriously consider some shit. Now watch this video. I can't wait to give you guys a response, because this video was fabulous.
Former Soviet Union and other authoritarian dictatorial regimes. We're really talking about other people being dictatorial. And Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, as bad as Biden is, you guys are significantly worse, and it's not even close. The Democrats are just way better. They're just way better. They're a trillion times better than Republicans.
All right, so there's a lot I have to say in response to this. These kinds of criticisms from this guy, I honestly believe that these people usually overstate how bad Trump is, and they understate how bad Biden is. Well, you're more ideologically in agreement with Biden than you are in agreement with Trump. Well, actually, when it comes to the First Step Act, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to pardoning Alice Johnson, I agree with Trump on that. When it comes to TPP, Trump's against it, Biden's for it. I agree with Trump on that. I agree more with Trump on North Korea than I agree with Biden. I would need to be convinced that Biden would fight for at least one or two of my top 5 issues. Medicare for all, free college, living wage, ending the wars, and UBI. The people who say Trump is a fascist and they think he's like, basically, we can't survive another 4 years of America with him. Yes. The country will survive 4 years with Trump. The country will survive 4 years with Joe Biden. Again, I think they understate how bad Biden is. Why? On so many core issues, he's against us. Me, at least. I can't speak for this guy. Joe Biden pushed for NAFTA. He repeatedly pushed for TPP. He's a supporter of the Iraq War. On all the pivotal issues of his time, he was wrong. So stop overstating how bad Trump is. The country's still going to exist in 4 years. And understating how bad Biden is. Because it's annoying. I just don't agree with the people who are like, he's a fascist, he's a Nazi, the country's not going to exist in 4 years. You're hyperbolic and you're ridiculous.
Oh! You got knocked the fuck out, man.
So, do you guys remember when? And once again, this is a damning video, right? Do you guys remember my psychology, my hood psychology I have? Kyle is running away from the man on the left there. He want to completely and utterly reject the man on the left to the point where he want to completely change his appearance. So I would love to ask a psychologist, a real one, if there's something there you hiding from your past. Because Kyle completely obliterates. So remember in the first video, Biden, he said you want Biden to at least fight for a few of these things, like Medicare for all and living wage and ending the wars, for example. Biden did absolutely none of those things. Biden did absolutely none of those things, and now a few years later he flip flops.
What about Zenkis? Is Zenkis a psych? Is he a psych doctor? I know he's a professor. You know what I'm talking about. Zenkis, the guy who comes on your show every now and then.
Zenkis, I gotta ask him.
Ask him.
He's
a professor. He's smart.
Yeah, because
certainly smarter than me.
Because that's a huge 180 compared to what Kyle was. Because I remember Kyle Kalinske early on, how he used to be a firebrand, and then he does this. He becomes nothing but a soft, weak individual saying, "Oh, Biden's doing great things." I mean, honestly, it's either Crystal did something, or
I'm sorry, man.
You know.
I stick to my thesis. That looks like one whipped motherfucker to me.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. Those two pictures side by side. Come on.
Yeah.
I mean, there has to be some explanation. There has to be an explanation for the pivot, but he should not pretend like there's not some sort of pivot. There's an explanation for Jank's pivot. We understand $20 million is his reason for his pivot. I'm trying to understand, outside of what Russell is saying, I'm trying to understand the pivot for Kyle Kalinske, because that video, to Nick's point, that is devastating. That's devastating. Literally saying the opposite, probably not even 2 years ago. He's literally saying the opposite. And I think the older Kyle was more accurate, in my opinion, than this new Kyle that completely has bought into the Democratic Party. I mean, he is now saying that the Democratic Party is going, and this is his debate. This is his debate line. He's not, let me debate Palestine and Israel. Let me debate Ukraine war. It's let me debate you on whether or not the Democratic Party is better than the Republicans. I mean, that tells you to me. But I'll pass to the panel for any other comments, and then Nick, we can get to the next story.
Yeah, going once, going twice.
Yeah, no, I think we're good.
Yeah, nothing else can be said that has been said already.
Yeah, we have quite a bit to cover. Make sure you guys share the stream if you haven't already. Obviously, we have the giant crisis in Hawaii. The response, and I said this on Twitter earlier, this is Joe Biden's Hurricane Katrina moment. And he has a moment today. We're going to share this clip of him saying no comment during this disaster. And can you imagine if there was a disaster like this under Donald Trump administration and he didn't even have the courtesy to say a comment and condolence to the dead? He didn't even say that. He just said no comment. Not worth my time. Now, White House, and this is from Washington Post, White House defends Biden's action after criticism over Maui response. And I hope I'm saying that correctly. Because you had on-the-ground citizen journalists, I'm going to show you guys this viral clip that's been all over Twitter, where you have on-the-ground citizen journalists that expose how the corporate media have been undercounting the amount of people who have died, and they're not getting the aid that they need. So you have Maui residents that say, we need money in people's hands amid the wildfire. Now, I'm going to show you guys, let me pull this video up because here you go. Let me pull this one. I should have had this one up earlier. Here it is. This is what I believe, because I have this tweet. I'm gonna show you guys this video later where Biden says no comment. I have a tweet that went pretty viral while I was reporting on this. And the amount of liberal bots and blue checks that are gaslighting and lying about this event in order to cover for the corrupt Biden administration is disgusting. The culture of the Democratic Party is disgusting because people are lying to cover for our government's inaction on this. So let's listen to her, and she can explain. We are not going to watch the whole thing. The first few minute or so is powerful. So let's check this out first.
If you don't know what's going on in Maui, we're just being completely devastated right now. The last 4 days, I've been non-stop, just working around the clock, trying to get supplies for people, trying to get the supplies to the people, working at the shelters. It's just, I'm safe, and my family is safe, and my dogs are safe. Last night, they said the death toll is 80. It's not correct. They're not reporting it correctly. I don't know why they're not reporting it correctly. There's hundreds, at least 600, if not thousands of people who are dead in the streets, floating in the ocean. There's over 3,000 homes that have been burned to the ground. There's no help here on the ground. All it is residents pulling together. My whole entire truck is full of supplies right now. Just residents going to the store, going to Walmart, going to Costco, buying as much as they can.
And listen to what she says there. There's ordinary neighbors that are pulling together, and every single on the ground reporting I have seen through people sharing their social media and reports like this have been saying people have been coming together and helping our neighbors out. Like we know that people had the potential to do. That's why we advocate for the politics we have. But they're doing this in lieu of government assistance and government help. And that is what she is saying on the ground. Meanwhile, the corporate media and liberals right now are spinning this fairy tale where Biden has this amazing response in Maui. And apparently their biggest mistake is not naming this city Ukraine, Hawaii, because if they did, they will get billions of dollars overnight. Anyway, let's continue. We're not gonna watch the whole video. We may play another minute because I think you guys get the gist of this. Because I have a few more quick receipts I want to show you guys regarding this.
Driving it straight into Lahaina. I went there last night, and there was a fire that started, and we got so scared we weren't able to drop off all the supplies. But there was flames that we saw, and we were like, we just have to get out of here. It's so awful. The people who were able to evacuate Lahaina and get out, they're at the shelters, and the shelters are just a mess right now. They're so disorganized. We don't have anyone from any organizations helping. I think Red Cross is here, but it's just so unorganized. No one knows what we need. It's awful. And the people that are still in Lahaina that were not able to evacuate, they don't have gas in their cars. They can't leave. Some people are just holed up in their houses waiting for someone to come knock on their door and give them supplies. They don't even know supplies are being distributed at the docks in Lahaina. And it's getting so bad in Lahaina. I never thought this was going to happen, but there's people going into other people's homes trying to steal their stuff, I heard that the people are being held at gunpoint over there. I'm doing everything.
Meanwhile, I'm waiting for the Biden administration. Oh, what the heck? Anyway, I want to show this. I don't know what the hell that's coming from. Oh, there you go. This video play. Anyway, I want to share this. I went to share this tab here. Sorry, I had a fucking glitch. But this is what Max Blumenthal posted. This is a great point where he said George Bush was properly roasted by the national media over passing over New Orleans during Hurricane Katrina. Now you had East Palestine, and now you have, as this lady in the video explained, Native Hawaiians organized aid for Maui victims as government lags. And meanwhile, you still have progressives who support this guy, who's lagging in support of helping the civilians of Hawaii. Meanwhile, you had $226 billion to go into Ukraine. You guys know the Biden administration, they have this aid package where they said they're going to give people $700. Just $700. And they praise them. They're like, yeah, we're going to put money in their pockets. We're going to give them $700. We should be helping these people thrive, fam. We should be taking care of them. They can give them $700. We were paying the entire payroll of the Ukrainian government. Hundreds of billions of dollars going to Ukraine. But
You know
we
what
pay $700.
You know,
Anyway,
you
go
know
ahead,
what? That's
guys.
fun. Well, actually, there's something I do want to chime in here, and something that's kind of been really like I find it to be an example of coincidence or so much more. But there's like 8 rich people, 2 of which Oprah Winfrey and Jeff Bezos, whose properties are surprisingly nice, safe, and unburnt. And that's something that I do want to point out because since they're
In that town?
There's a
Yeah,
lot of
and-
weird shit
yeah.
going on in the story.
There is. Like somehow it's a miracle upon miracles. Now, look, I don't want to speculate because that's not fair to the audience. But hey, Jeff, Oprah, and all the other rich people that manage to have their properties nice, safe, and protected. Can you think about maybe, I don't know, maybe sheltering some people, helping them out? You can't take care of all of them. I know you can't, but you guys still have a roof over your head. I mean, that's just something that should be just thrown out there. Just throwing it out there.
Now, this point, Kid, to your point, Kid, and I wanted to squeeze this in. I think it's a good time to do this, and I'm gonna show you guys Joe Biden's recent comment, where you have residents that worry that rebuild homes in Maui town could slip into the hands of affluent outsiders seeking a tropical haven rather than homegrown residents who give the Hawaiian Island experience spirit and identity. And there are already people who live there that are afraid that they're essentially about to be replaced by giant capital. Now, this is something that we got to be vigilant on and call out is this is where disaster capitalism thrives. Yep. They are looking to come in and misplace these people, and this is something that they are 100% worried about, as you was alluding to, Kid. But I'm gonna show you guys the big video. This is what everything was alluding to. As you have Joe Biden, who just authorized another $24 billion to Ukraine. Just as he does that, they do a pathetic relief package compared to what they gave in Ukraine. They got 2 times more money in the recent package to go in Ukraine compared to the aid that's going to Maui. So Joe Biden has billions to give to Nazis in Ukraine. There's some program I watched and it was like, yeah, Joe Biden is going to give $10 billion. I'm like, compared to how much they give to Ukraine, fam? And that's the argument that everyone is making. So Joe Biden has billions to give to Nazis in Ukraine, but meanwhile, this is what he had to say about Maui.
Any comments on the rising death toll in Maui?
Look at that shit-eating grin. Yeah, I know people die. Can you imagine the media response? And I want you know how horrific Trump derangement syndrome is, right? Can you imagine the media response that Trump was laughing and saying no comment when asked about the victims of a tragedy?
This is just horrible.
Actually, Trump did do a response, and it was far more coherent and more humane than Biden's no comment.
Oh yeah, no, Trump would never say no comment and get in the car. He'd always say it's terrible what's going on there. We'll get on it, and then he'll get in the car.
And they throw some paper towels at him.
Now this clip here. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
The way that we're responding to all of these disasters, I think a lot of people thought that Biden is going to come in and, at least they'll be technocrats. At least things will be done competently. This is what happens when you have a collapsing empire. It can't handle its shit. It doesn't really matter who happens to be at the head of the empire. The whole system is becoming sclerotic and incapable of dealing with these kinds of events. And I think if you look at how it's handled, particularly at the outer edges of the empire, it's very much like Rome, right? The outer perimeters of the empire collapse first. Because I'm sitting here in New York, which I would say, along with DC, are probably the beating heart of the empire. And they pretty much keep things running here because this will be last. Out there is going first. And that's what you're seeing. Hawaii's way out there. They don't have things coordinated properly to deal with something like this there.
Even Biden didn't show up to East Palestine, Ohio, and that's on the mainland. He's not going to show up there. He's not going to show up anywhere because, again, he wouldn't even know what to say in the first place because the handlers know he'll probably stutter or screw it up. But I mean, again, no attempt by anyone in the administration, even Kamala. Kamala, you would think of all people, if not Biden, then the vice president herself should go or make some kind of statement. But again, all what you could do is cackle and laugh.
I mean, what they need there is they need evacuation. It's not safe to be on a burning island. There's no escape from a burning island except getting off the island, right? I mean, there's literally, I mean, it sounds simplistic, but they're out of room. People would take shelter from the fire in the water because there is nowhere to go. It's a relatively small island and it's all burning. So they need to get people off of it. Like, it takes a coordinated response from the wealthiest government on earth to get people the fuck off. That's what they have to do.
Well, regarding what she was saying about the death toll, they were saying there's still over 1,000 people missing.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, yeah, no, it's gonna be a nightmare.
A horrific toll.
Yeah,
it's a tragedy. So as they are giving people in Maui only $700, and government aid lags, so people had to rely on community organizing. The sales of luxury cars in Ukraine breaks records, though. Isn't that great? Isn't that great? Isn't our priorities amazing?
Holy!
And now this is the state of Ukraine.
I mean, that backs up what Cy Hirsch said, man. Cy Hirsch said these generals are driving around in luxury cars from all the money they're stealing from what we're sending there.
How many special interests or advisor groups are there from the U.S. and NATO that are there probably partying up there too? Maybe not seen on camera, but perhaps maybe in the VIP rooms, just taking some of that book of sugar. You know, never know.
Those NATO advisors have great sex game.
Yeah, and we really not gonna understand the extent.
Little Nazi exploitation, amateur films being shot over there.
Especially because scumbags like Bernie Sanders and the entire Democratic Party voted against Ukraine oversight. It's going to be years and years before we truly understand the depth of corruption that went on in Ukraine. Yeah. It's always after the fact.
Yeah, you probably never will, because it's probably going to end very badly for them, and it's all going to go up in smoke anyway. There'll probably be like no accounting for it.
Now, I'm going to have ongoing coverage of this because there's a lot of interesting things that happened during this fire. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, there's a defiant thing now. We're just going to bring up some coincidences. Okay? I'm not saying anything. I'll just bring up coincidences, okay? Hawaii, who has this amazing alert system that was praised worldwide as one of the best alert security systems ever. None of it went off. None of the alarms went off. And also, if you look at all the people who had investment capital, like the majority of the victims were residential, and you look at the people who residential was not harmed, isn't it coincidence? Once again, we talk about coincidences here, that none of these people lost any property. Who these are the people who are using their capital to colonize Hawaii. This is something that indigenous Hawaiians have been speaking about for decades now.
My question is there property in that part of Hawaii? Like
yes. Yes. Like really? And even though like 85, I believe as it stands right now, unless there's been any update, 85% of the fire has been coordinated or quarantined so far. But I mean, again, they were in the front areas, and their communities, their little mansions are nice, safe, and unburnt.
So this is Oprah here, who has 2,000 acres of land on Maui, but unscathed. Yeah, coincidence. Man, crazy things happen, right? Let's say that. 2,000 acres of land untouched. So she lived there part-time. This is part of this new cultural capitalist imperialism where they're changing the culture of Hawaii. There's a video I need to find it, where this lady was complaining on the two Hawaiis. There are two Hawaiis right now. There's a Hawaii that they live in, where most people are ignoring, they're not getting the aid they need, that has been exploited. Then there are the Hawaii that the tourists live in, that the mainland capitalists live in to escape the mainland and to avoid taxes as well. I'm really mad I didn't save this clip, but I might have to find this for later. This clip which is later we talk about it. So this is Oprah's response, and she claimed that she's gonna have a hefty donation. Now I want to ask you guys these questions. I'm just asking questions here. As someone who have a completely different political ideology than most people, do we need or do we want to rely on the charity of these capitalists who surely doing this out of the kindness of their heart instead of having an active community response from a government who definitely can afford it?
No.
I don't want Oprah's greasy paws anywhere near this because this is where this is a phase of capitalism that is extremely predictable. You see it every time. It's disaster capitalism.
That's what they did to what you were talking about before. Their fears that their homes are going to be, built and taken over by outsiders. That's what happened in New Orleans.
Yeah.
You go there now, and the natives say the heart is just gone from it. The heart's been ripped out of the place because if you ever saw the show Treme, it really gets into that. How after Katrina, they shut down all the projects, they shut down all the affordable housing because they didn't want those people to come back from Texas and the other states they had gone to. And they moved in gentrification. I mean, it sounds like that might be part of the plan. By accident, all of this is a coincidence, as you say.
I also want to point out here too, and again, I think it's important for us, all of us, due dissidents, RBN, and Hardlands, to reach out to people maybe who live in Hawaii, because there's one thing that is also underreported even before these fires happen is that there's been a massive amount of homelessness and economic hardship towards the native Hawaiians. In fact, as it stands, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, because I remember there was a report being done on this, but Native Hawaiians are not given the same rights or acknowledgement as Native Americans in the mainland. Like, they don't have those same rights, or they're still fighting for acknowledgement after years of decades of abuse, harassment, and extermination, and so much more. I mean, gentlemen, do you want to chime in on that?
Yeah, anyone want to chime in real quick?
I don't.
No,
I
go
don't
ahead.
know
Go
about
ahead
that
with
till
the
it
rest.
happened.
Yeah, because again, hold on. I'm actually seeing the live stream chat. Somebody's saying Hawaii does have the highest rate of homelessness. So
the highest in the country?
Let's check this out. Hawaii.
Because I never heard that. I mean, it is definitely, it's one of those places like Alaska we don't pay a lot of attention to. There's not a lot of real reporting on what goes on within that state.
I mean, it would make sense why Hawaii would have high homeless. Just the same reason why Southern California, you go to where the weather is. If you have to live outside all the time, you're gonna go where it rains the least, and it has the least amount of snow. So that's why we have it here. And it would make sense if that's the case.
I want to add in something right here. I just got 2 links from a fan who just sent this to me. The price of housing in Hawaii is a large factor in why the homeless population is swelling.
Oh, yeah, it's very expensive.
Hawaii's housing costs are extremely high, and average incomes fail to meet the criteria for rentals. From 2022, the unsheltered numbers did fall from 15. Well, obviously this is from 2022, so this is dated information. In downtown and Kalihi, from 622 to 530, and 8% in East Honolulu and Waikiki. All right, so there is obviously the fact of homelessness is a factor because of the high price of the housing. Hey, Oprah, Lady Gaga, well done. You're causing more harm than good.
Right, they're running up the prices. Go ahead, Nick. The rest of the story, if you had any.
Yeah, I want to. Actually, I think that's it on the Maui story. I want to show you guys this because there's a lot of people who believe, like Marianne Williamson, for example, that we funded Ukraine from the kindness of our heart. And you had Mitch McConnell that said the quiet part out loud, which was extremely interesting, where Mitch McConnell on Wednesday called for continued support for Ukraine in an event in Louisville, Kentucky. Now you're going to have this debate that's going to continue to get interesting as this campaign season heats up, because you have the Mike Pence, Mitch McConnell, neocon right that's going to have this public debate with the right, like Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene and a few others are speaking out on this. But listen to what Mitch says here, because this is one of the moments when they got caught being too comfortable among their class. So they said the quiet part out loud. And he said, people think increasingly it appears that we shouldn't be doing this. Well, let me start by saying we haven't lost a single American in this war. So this Mitch McConnell saying, yeah, man, these Ukrainians are dying for us. Isn't that amazing?
Or Lindsey Graham said, "This is the best money we've ever spent. We're killing Russians."
So this is what Bernie Sanders and Marianne Williamson think. They think that we're doing this for a humanitarian reason. That we actually care about the Ukrainian people. Mitch McConnell continues, most of the money that we spend related to Ukraine is actually spent in the United States. Replenishing weapons, more modern weapons. So it's actually employing people here and improving our own military for what lie ahead. Now, look back at what he said at the beginning, how he said we haven't lost a single American. So he is extremely excited and happy that the money that we send to Ukraine essentially being money laundered here to prop up our military industrial complex without the cost of our soldiers. So this is the politicians straight up admitting that we don't want peace in Russia and Ukraine. We blocking peace proposals in order to fund the military industrial complex more. And this is something that the NATO left and Bernie Sanders and the progressives are directly responsible for. Anyway, that's pretty much almost like a mini segment on this. So anyone want to chime in on this? This is the politician saying the quiet part out loud. And I'll pass to you, CJ, after this. Anything else you guys want to add to this? Or we move on?
Bring something in we usually do on our show. Chris Hedges, America the Farewell Tour, book recommendation. He gets very much into that in that book, how that's the last manufacturing left in America. Ammunition, missiles, military manufacturing, because a lot of that, they're not allowed to manufacture it overseas for security reasons. So it's really the last manufacturing jobs in the country. So a big part of the motivation of keeping this enormous military budget is to keep some vestige of manufacturing employment left.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd add to that is, if and when, Trump wins the nomination going into the general election, it's just going to be very interesting to see how the Republican Party handles that, because he's going to be giving a message at the top of the ticket that flies in the face of a lot of what the party bosses want to hear from the standard bearer of their party. The Democrats aren't going to have that problem, obviously, but the Republicans might very well.
That's a great point. We're gonna transition to the next topic. Now, these are gonna be a lot shorter topics, and we're gonna probably try to get to at least 2 of them. And these are topics that we individually on our own channels, we may have covered these, but we haven't yet to cover them together. And
here we go.
This particular
wake up.
Yeah, this particular one, of course, we got to cover. If it's glitchy at all, let me know, and then I'll let one of you play it. But I'm gonna try to play it now. If there's a problem or if there's a lot of buffering, let me know, and then one of you can play the clip. But AOC tweets this out. This is her own tweet, and this is what it says. It says, U.S. sunscreens are far behind the rest of the world, and our regulations aren't necessarily making our sunscreen better or safer. But it doesn't have to be this way, everybody. This is what she put out. And I must say, I covered this before. I think it was with you, kid, but I covered this before. I must say, when I saw this, I literally thought this was AOC, like a joke sketch. I didn't think this was.
Yeah.
I didn't think this was real. Yeah, I didn't think this was real at all. And let me tell you why. I'm gonna play it without the sound. Right? I'm gonna play it without the sound. You
We're
tell.
gonna talk about today.
You tell
We're
me
here to talk about
that this doesn't look like some sort of fun sketch if you were watching this, because I was looking through my feed and I'm like, oh, AOC's putting this out. This is some kind of funny little thing some progressives are doing. I'm like, I don't want to hear this stuff until I start hearing people talk about it. I'm like, wait, this is a serious video. And then I turn on the sound. This is like 2 hours later. Then I turn on the sound. I was like, oh wow, this is a freaking serious video. So let's listen, and then we'll play the whole video. Hopefully, I'm not gonna hold our stuff to it, and then we'll try to play the whole video, and then we'll try to comment at the end.
We're here to talk about today. We are here to talk about sunscreen, specifically U.S. sunscreen, and how to fix it. Hello, everyone. This is Rep AOC, and I'm here with Charlotte Palomino.
I'm a brand owner, but also a licensed esthetician. U.S. sunscreen regulations are not necessarily making us more safe or better products.
U.S. sunscreens are far behind the rest of the world. I was in South Korea earlier this year, and it is so clear how far advanced the rest of the world is on sunscreen, and we deserve better here in the U.S.
How does the FDA regulate?
FDA is different than the rest of the world in that we regulate sunscreen as a drug.
That's the only thing you recognize the difference in Vietnam was that between the U.S. and us was sunscreens.
Yeah, no. She went to Korea. She went to Korea.
I'm sorry. Korea. Nothing else you would notice is going on between the U.S. and I think she said South Korea. I guess not. But let's listen some more to what she says. Where is that? Right here.
If only the people who are suffering from fires
instead of a cosmetic. It's regulated as a drug.
Say that again, Kit.
If only people who are right now suffering from the fires in California, Texas, and Hawaii had that sunscreen, they'd be doing just fine.
Exactly.
Outside Steeler fan, I stole your joke.
Standards, far more testing, far more scientific and clinical trials that are required, which is good. We want to make sure that things are safe. However, sometimes that can add a lot of bureaucratic and costs that prevent us from getting any sunscreen filters at all.
And just for context, it has been since 1999. It was the last time that we had a new sunscreen filter in the United States.
When we compare the US standards to European standards in 2017, a Sloan Kettering study found that only half of US sunscreens met European protection standards. Here's the thing though, there is something that we can do about this. Congress has not been very aware of this issue, which is why there hasn't been a lot of momentum behind this issue. Truly, it's not too corny. Please contact your member of Congress, especially if your member of Congress sits on the Energy and Commerce Committee. They have jurisdiction over the FDA.
Did she ever tell any of her followers to contact the Commerce Department, to contact anybody on the climate change department about the Ukraine pollution, anything about the Nord Stream, so how, like, this also kind of could be connected, and somebody did allude to this, to the two earlier segments we did earlier. Like, is this video even an indication of the Bernie Sanders movement being over? Is this video an indication of the Justice Democrats collapsing? Go ahead. Anybody wants to chime in?
Yes, I mean, for Christ's sakes, people are starving. We've listed, again, I'm not going to list all the things that are wrong in this country, but here's AOC, her big brain moment. And again, shout out to Roger Meadows. How is it that this philanthropist or an entrepreneur knew to go to AOC and that this would be done unless AOC got a check underneath the table or something else? This comes on par with an MLM scheme or something else insidious. And what does AOC do? Hey, call your congresswoman or congressperson so you could do something about sunscreen. AOC, we don't have health care. Remember you used to tweet about that? At least you made an attempt to somewhat care, but sunscreen, folks. She's got sunscreen. Thank goodness. Jake, Kyle, thank you so much for this STD known as AOC.
It plays to me. I mean, I don't know. It plays to me like they're buddies and they were sitting at lunch and she was, you know what we should do? We could totally sell a lot of sunscreen if we make a video. Oh my God, would you do that for me? I would totally do that for you. You know how much sunscreen you'll sell? I'm like a famous member of Congress. Let's do it. That's how this plays to me. Like this is her gal pal, and they decided to slap together a video to move her business.
Well, one thing that's not a joke, it sounds like a joke, but Russ and I with Tusker, who co-hosted our show with us last night, we did a segment on this last night. And we just got an email a couple hours before the show started this evening from The Guardian. So a reporter from The Guardian apparently watched our take, and they're going to interview us about this video.
Oh, wow.
tomorrow.
Wow.
So we should be quoted in the Guardian. I doubt the article will be out tomorrow. The article has to go to print, or it has to be submitted in the afternoon, so it'll probably be out the next day. But yeah, look for us in the Guardian this week. We're gonna give our first publicity quote to a major newspaper about this video here.
What did you guys say in the video? Wow, you must have said some crazy or great stuff in the video.
We did a comedy. I mean, my comedy bit that we worked was that it was medical misinformation because she's questioning the FDA's regulatory practices and how they should do that.
I mean, we made a joke out of it. Tusker had like North Korean sunscreen.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I'm flattered. I'm happy that the Guardian liked it and they want to interview us about it. But we really just made a joke out of it. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, look, the one serious point that we did make, that Russell actually made, was that you know, by putting the switchboard phone number up on the screen and urging the grassroots to get involved and pressure Congress, that was the kind of thing that she didn't do during the force the vote thing. And then she later accused the Republican force the vote people of causing themselves reputational harm by exerting that kind of pressure on their peers. And, you know, which was a pressure she was not willing to exert during the force the vote thing, but she's asking us to do this now for Korean sunscreen that for some reason is supposedly better than American sunscreen for reasons that she doesn't really articulate. Like, you don't even understand why we need this other sunscreen.
Right.
I mean, look, I can speak as the pastiest white boy on this panel. I've worn a lot of sunscreen in my day. It works like a charm, man. Like, sunscreen works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
When I rub that shit on, I don't get burned.
Like you ever put it on wrong and like where it's streaked, that part is white and the other part is tan. Like, clearly it works.
Oh yeah, no. When I was on vacation once on a beach, I missed the spot like right here, where my neck meets my shoulder. That spot got burned, but nowhere else. I mean, it works great.
So what do we
It's perfect
need this
sunscreen.
for?
We have the best sunscreen.
We have the best. We have the best here. We don't need that North Korean sunscreen.
You guys got to do me a favor, though.
This is a capitalist push. So because everybody's alluding to it. This is her friend. You know, this is obviously, because look at the way it's even done. It's done like so infomercially, like not like trying to be informative to say a call to action. Come on, everybody, a call to action. This is done so infomercially, and you're specifically talking about South Korea. That's very. It gives me vibes that eventually you're gonna roll out some sort of South Korean sunscreen if you get some sort of regulation change. But think about this. Has she ever? That's true. Or answer me this question, because I literally don't know. Maybe you guys know. Has she ever made a video asking her people to call to action about Medicare for All March or anything
right? Well, that was
like
that's
that.
what we were saying
to show up
night,
to a union, to show up to a strike or anything like that. Has anything?
If she did, we'd all. Come on, man. We're all we're all politics junkies in this space. If she ever had, it would have been on our show. We would know about it.
Yeah. You guys also got to do me a favor too. If you're going to be interviewed by the Guardian when that happens, you got to ask if George Monbiot is still upset at Russell Brand because he views Russell Brand a threat to democracy or something like that. He says the political discords are going to change.
Interesting.
All right,
I'll send you the article.
Yeah.
Let's finish the video, then we can move on.
Yay. However, any member of Congress can develop attention and draw attention to this issue, ask them to break through some of the regulatory barriers at the FDA and fund public research so that we can all enjoy the filters that develop out of the scientific process.
Just need to make some noise about it.
Totally. I mean, I love Korean sunscreens, but I want to buy this in the US. Why do we need to import them from all over the place?
Why? So why can't somebody in America make some money off of this? Go ahead, Kit. And I'm curious to hear Nick. I haven't heard Nick say anything about this specific topic. And then we'll close this segment.
Did you hear at the end where she's saying, like, why do we have to focus on the science? She doesn't want to listen to the science or the formula of making the sunscreens. AOC doesn't believe in science. She said that at the near end of this video.
That's what I mean. She should be deplatformed. She says deplatforming works when you spread misinformation.
Yeah,
That's
deplatforming works. AOC doesn't believe in the science. She's a hypocrite. Again,
Why are you pushing this fucking shady ass sunscreen on us when we have perfectly good sunscreen here? In defiance of the FDA, which is a cherished institution of tremendous integrity.
Yeonmi Park says in North Korea they do not have sunscreen. They have bug carcasses that they rub on themselves, actually.
But Nick, let's go to Nick then.
Cricket
what say you, sir, about this? Had you tweeted about this at all? I don't know if I. Yeah, no, I did show one of your
I tweeted it while I said
this.
I was like, "Is this a parody account?" Because, like you said, if someone did a deep fake of this, if there was one of those corny right-wing media influencers who put a wig on and pretended to be AOC and did a video like this, that would be exactly on brand for a parody and sketch on AOC. But the fact that she's seriously doing this is how you know that she's not even trying to win the left over anymore because she knows she lost the left. This is for liberal wine bombs and teenagers on social media who are not political yet. She's giving up on the left. And not that she's doing this, because I think if you're a member of Congress, even if it's somewhat silly things, you can advocate for that. That's not the issue. The issue is that she's doing this instead of making videos about the Ukraine war.
Right.
Because how many people in the NATO left pretend to be stupid about the Ukraine war? How much miseducation and propaganda is there about the Ukraine war? Can you imagine if the influence of AOC, if she actually was a serious leftist and did video displaying the Maidan coup, explaining imagine AOC did video explaining who Stefan Bandera is, right? That would be something that would be useful to the left. If she did that and then she did this bullshit on the side, I wouldn't give a fuck. Like, all right, yeah, she got multiple things she's working on. The problem is that she focused on this. That's the problem.
Imagine if she did a video about Ukrainian Nazis, but exactly in this style, with her and her friend being absolutely adorable and making little cute hand gestures. We're going to talk today about the Nazi history of Ukraine.
Let's have a conversation about how the media has been lying to you about Ukraine this whole time.
Yeah,
Let's talk about how Zelensky got in bed with Nazis in Ukraine. It's going to be educational. I'll be like, yeah, that's actually bad.
I'm trying to make a swastika, but it's not working.
Right, yeah, exactly.
Today in this video, we're going to cover all these Ukrainian soldiers that was caught with Nazi tattoos on them. Isn't that great? Like, in those videos, we wouldn't complain, right? It may be cringe in the delivery, but
well, no, that's a good point, and I've made that point in the past. Is that like I wouldn't hold this influencer shit against her if she was doing it in addition to what she was sent there to do.
Right.
I gave her a pass on all that because I'm like, hey, you know what, like. If the most famous member of Congress is a Democratic Socialist, that's better than the most famous member of Congress being Hakeem Jeffries, right? So, like, whatever. God bless. Like, do your thing. As long as it's in supplements to what you were sent there to do. But she's doing it as a substitute for what she was sent there to do. That's the problem.
Right.
That's all she's doing.
Right.
I have a very quick story. Like, this story is very quick. Literally just a few receipts I want to show you. No video at all. But this is
okay. Let's do that one. Let's do that one, and then we'll do this one, the RFK abortion reversal, and that's going to be very.
Yeah, my story's not that long. Yeah.
Yeah. So let me take it off. Hold on a second. All right, go ahead, Nick.
Yeah. So we've been covering this theme, and as we said many times before, electoral politics is really hard to predict, and who knows what may happen over the next few months. But between Biden's no comment on Hawaii and the fact that Democrat strategy apparently heading into this election is to have millionaires like Joe Scarborough tell people to stop whining, have millionaire liberals tell people that the economy is good. Hey, you poor peasants, I know you think you're going through hard times right now, but your suffering is not real. No, seriously, that's their strategy. So I'm going to show you guys just a few hilarious headlines to show how deeply out of touch. I got to refresh this. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this play out. Because their strategy now is to gaslight. Damn, this website's horrible. Oh, I hate this website. Their strategy is to gaslight people into thinking their economy is good. So this is one headline. Biden is out pitching his economic wins. Arizona voters say they don't see them. Now, this is a problem with the Biden administration where they're saying, hey, this economy is great. You got his media propagandists like this guy Tom Rogers, who know this guy is clearly connected to the working class, who put this article out that is beyond parody. And I just simply said the United States is the most propagandized country in the world because this is the headlines you get in the most propagandized country in the world. So as people are struggling to feed themselves. You had Americans that say they won't be able to retire. People, record amount of Americans are food insecure. Record amount of homeless. Despite all this stuff that's going on, this is what the narrative in liberal land. Biden saved the economy and launched a new age of prosperity. Why isn't he getting any credit? Why aren't the workers giving Biden any credit for his economic gains?
Ignorant peasants.
And this is the last thing I'm gonna read. This is
Male
the last
version of Joy Bayard.
On this, I want to pass this pen after I read this because Democrats are in such shambles over the fact that people are not buying this bullshit that we're in a good economy. Bidenomics, they're calling it. You had Democrats question whether it's the economy anymore, stupid. So Democrats and liberals are so delusional. They're so delusional about this economy. They're saying, well, this economy has to be good, but they don't like Joe Biden. That must mean people must not care about the economy anymore. You even had James Carville.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm gonna
of
get you guys
course.
in here. Like James Carville.
Of course.
Oh, of all people.
I
Guy
mean,
who
who
coined that
else?
frame. I'm sorry, guy, but James Carville, the guy who coined that phrase, "It's the economy, stupid." Even he's like, now, man, I always thought it was the economy. I always thought it was so. Look, this is what they say. Even Democratic strategist James Carville, who coined the phrase, has acknowledged some doubt. Well, I always thought so. I'm starting to doubt myself a little bit because this economy is quite good. Maybe it will kick in, and sometimes it take a while for people to feel it. So then the first two paragraphs I kind of skipped. I want to give you guys thoughts on this, and we can wrap the segment. And they say it's the economy, stupid. For decades, that's been as a sound political strategy behind every effective political campaign. Focus on the economy and people's pocketbooks and get some good luck in terms of how the economy is actually running when you run for office, and voila, you get elected to the White House and you win election. The question a growing number of Democrats are asking, however, is whether that's still the case. As President Biden deals with stronger economic numbers but low approval ratings. So liberal strategy in 2024 is essentially saying the economy is stupid. You guys are too dumb to realize it.
Well,
what are you guys thoughts? Not my presentation. I want to give you guys thoughts and we can wrap. I'll open it to
they're only looking at the stats they want to look at. They're not looking at the fact that credit card debt is at a record high. And people are also tapping into their 401ks. What is that telling you about the underlying economy? They always mistake Wall Street for the economy. The fucking Wall Street was off the hook when everyone was locked in their house. What else do you need to demonstrate how disconnected how the bond market and the stock market is doing from the real economy? Why do you think people are charging up their credit cards like that? Why would they tap their 401ks? There's penalties. It's going to hurt your retirement. They're not doing that because they got money in their pocket and because the economy is great.
And there are workers that say they can't afford a $500 emergency. How do liberals square this idea that we live in a good economy when we have so many workers who are upset and ready to strike?
Because
and
they don't have Trump to
Russell's
upset
point,
them.
to Russell's point, I actually got in this article because I wanted to see his argument. And you brought up how they brought up the stats that they want to see.
Right.
And he bring up GDP growth to 2.4%, well ahead of expectations. What does that mean? Who set the expectation? You guys? So no matter what that number is, they say, oh my God, we got GDP growth of X above expectations. Inflation,
well, you know what they say about capitalism? It looks good on paper, but in real life, it just doesn't work. Right? I mean, this is the thing. You can make an economy look good on a balance sheet, but the bottom line is shit costs too much money. Jobs don't pay enough, so people don't have enough money to get the shit they need and get the bills paid. I mean, it's that simple. Like, it's not any more complicated than that. That's why people don't think the economy is good, because they don't have enough money. Like, it's really not rocket science, right? But they can't square that because they don't meet any of those people. They read the papers, they check the stock market, everything looks good on all the data looks good on my laptop, right? And so they don't see it. They don't see it. And they're always the last ones to the party. You know, David Brooks just wrote an op-ed in the New York Times last week that we covered on our show saying, hey, what if we, the sort of anti-Trump Mitt Romney Chamber of Commerce Republican types, what if we were the bad guys all along? What if this meritocracy that we, have built and nurtured these past several decades, what if that's all a con game? What if that's all bullshit? That's what the Bernie left was saying back in 2015. And it took a lot of these people 8 years to catch on. Most of them still haven't caught on. That's why I thought it was noteworthy that David Brooks at least had that moment where he decided to write a mea culpa of sorts. Most of these people still haven't caught on, and they never will. They just never will.
Yeah, so this is the part I want to highlight. This is in the article where they're making a great point about Biden the economy. This is how they're trying to spin it. And I found this hilarious. He says unemployment is at a 54-year low at 3.7%, despite predictions that unemployment will substantially increase. Wage growth. Now, we have different definitions here because he says wage growth has been particularly strong at around 4%.
Since when?
Wage growth is not matching inflation. But according to him, wage growth is strong. And now look at this. And most commodity prices are down some 50%, with some down considerably more. While gasoline prices have increased somewhat in the last month, they're lower than it was 18 months ago. So they're admitting that the cost of gas has gone up. But there he wants people to be happy with just 4% wage growth and unemployment being down when most people are getting trial jobs and record amount of workers have to get a second job in order to maintain their standard of living. But these are things that they want us to be excited about. And this is the Cope at the article where he says, I think I read it before. Yet despite all these positive economic developments, Biden's economic approval rating stands at just 37%. What do you mean just? He should be ecstatic. And this is they're so greedy. Like they report on this all the time where they'll say stuff like this. They're like, man, do you know that only 2 out of 10 Republicans believe that Donald Trump should be prosecuted? I'm like, 2 out of 10, that's a lot, motherfucker. What are you talking about? You guys should be happy that 4 out of 10. It was like only 6 out of 10 Americans believe that Donald Trump is guilty. That's a lot considering the bullshit you guys are spilling. Well, the fact that Joe Biden got 37%, you guys should be happy about that.
It's amazing that they're ignoring something very obvious in all this. Yeah, inflation might be slowing down, sure, but the prices have reset higher,
right,
in a way that's not commensurate with any increase in wages, even the one that you're claiming. You're saying yourself inflation was 10% last year. So if wages are increasing 4%, well, it's costing people 6% of their income to make up for that inflation. You would need deflation to get back where we are, not slowing inflation. So, hey, you guys are supposed to be professional economists. You can't figure out that people feel poorer when now dude, I get a bacon, egg, and cheese in Harlem now. That shit is permanently $6.
No.
That was $3.50 before the pandemic. That was $3.50 for as long as I was living here. It was $3. It moved up to $3.50. Now shit is $6 for a bacon, egg, and cheese in Harlem.
Now it's a Lincoln and a Washington bill. God damn.
That's it.
That is
all over the country, and that is all throughout the economy. Like, it's really not rocket science. Like, that alone will tell you why people feel this way.
Of course, and it's such incredible gaslighting. Oh, well, inflation has slowed. Yeah, the rate of inflation has slowed, but as Russell said, the prices have not gone back down.
Right.
Nope. They haven't gone back down. It's just the rate at which they've gone up has gotten slower.
And you notice the language he used to make workers accept this. He's like, well, even though inflation not down you want, it is kind of lower than, but it's still not affordable for us to live. There's all these excuses that why we as workers should accept. And that's what liberals keep doing, all these excuses that we are supposed to accept. And that's why I mentioned earlier during the cow segment, how does it benefit us to buy this narrative? and this is what I truly believe, if you don't feel change in your life with the economy, you have the right to be upset about that. And that's considered blasphemous in Washington. The idea that we're supposed to be some sort of grown up about this, but yeah, I don't feel it personally, but I guess I just trust your word for it. You say the economy good. I know I don't feel it, but since you say it good, I guess I got your word. How absurd is that? If you don't feel it in your life, it's not good. It's not good. And how can you easily fix this? How can you easily fix that problem? You fix that problem by having solid, universal, socialist programs. Like, people won't feel like the economy is shit if they have free healthcare, for example. How many people will say the economy is shit if they not paying a shit ton out of health premiums, and they now got the an extra $500, $600 instead of extra to spend instead of spending on health insurance? They may feel like the economy is better because that's actually a policy that benefits them. It's not means tested garbage.
Right. Well, that's the key. They couldn't pass not a single universal hand up, right? Even if it's something like the child tax credit, right? Which I understand that only impacts parents, but for a family of four, it's $600 a month. That's $7,200 a year. That's not nothing. At least you have families who feel the crunch of it, most because they're providing for, two or three people. That's at least something. Nothing. You didn't even get paid leave. You got nothing. I mean, what? The Inflation Reduction Act, which isn't set to begin reducing inflation until next year sometime? I think even later. There's no indication that ordinary people are going to feel any relief in time for it to help Joe Biden, and so that all they can do is gaslight people.
It's an extension of the politics they always use, right? The peasants are ignorant, and they don't realize what wonderful things the aristocracy is doing for them.
So this is what we're gonna do. I want to run through super chats real quick, so we're not too behind. After I run through super chats, I'll pass to you, CJ. We can do our last segment. So
yeah, that sounds good to me.
Thank you for the 199 Cool Blue. It is better to wake up late than never wake up.
True.
That's absolutely true. Thank you for the 199 Cool Blue. Thank you for the $5. Tusker, if I can get it pull up. I think my chat is freezing. What the hell? Hold up. CJ, can you? Well, I don't know what the fuck this thing. Here, let me see if I can get it to work. This thing is freezing up. Here you go. All right, I got it work now. Thank you for the $5. Tusker. Cal talks about FDR and his achievements all the time, but conveniently forgets about the role of the Communist Party during his time in office. Absolutely. Thank you for the $5, Tusker. We got one from Dave. Thank you for $20. What is Bleach Boy's superpower? Speaking to and getting to know marine life is my guess. He called him Aquaman. That's a very witty comment. Thank you for that, David. We got Solidarity super sticker from Henry Wallace. Thank you for $2. 999 from Kelly. Kyle says Alexandra Rojas makes very little in her field and makes $81K. What? That's equal to $38.57 an hour at 40 hours a week. You know how many Americans would love to make that? That's a great. I'm so glad you let super chat because I didn't know how much you make. And the professional managerial class does this shit all the time. They have no idea how much American people make. Half of workers make $30,000 or less. People have no idea about that.
Yeah, they're comparing themselves to a corporate CEO. That's how they're thinking because that's the class they put themselves in.
And think about how rich Cal Kalinske is, where you see $81K, where literally the top ones, some of the top percentiles of workers based on current wages, more than a lot of teachers, for example. Cal sees that like, oh, very little money. Jesus Christ, that motherfucker is balling, fam. He's balling. He sees $81K.
Who else did that? You know who else did something similar to that? Jordan Sheraton.
Yeah.
That's right.
We were beefing with him one time, and he was like, he was trying to prove how he's doing this for the people. He was like I could do this. He's like, I lost 100,000. I just lost 100,000. Like I don't even make, I'm making 100,000 less. And I was thinking like,
Are you making over 100? It's like, what the fuck?
He said he's making 100,000.
He said what on our show? I think he said he's making 40. Right? What did he say, Kate?
He said 45 on our show. He's making more now though because those Cornell videos are doing well for him. He finally learned the game, right? He finally learned the game. Rather than complain that the algorithm is suppressing the videos, make videos people want to watch and they'll watch them. So you know, God bless.
There you go.
Yeah. I don't make 45,000 doing this. And my response to that when we saw that in the video was, you bitching about you doing a job you love, you make 45K, you fucking bitching about it because more people not paying you. I don't make that much, so I'll be blessed. I feel blessed if I make any more. I'm more than happy where I'm at right now. But I'll be blessed if I made that much damn money. And you complaining about it, I just thought that was weird. Thank for the $2, Donald. Wonderful show. Appreciate that. Thank for $5, Tusker. The only time in history that the U.S. Communist Party ever encouraged its members to vote Dem Party was specifically during World War II to beat the Nazis.
And
excuse me,
now the Democrats are siding with the Nazis, and we're World War III. It's come full circle, my lovelies.
Now you have to vote for Trump to beat the Nazis. You have to vote for the Nazi to beat the Nazis.
Pay for the 199, Frank. Why the hell does Cal talk so damn fast? I can't really criticize because I had that problem too. I'll be trying to slow my ass down. So I can't necessarily talk shit on that one because that's a problem I have as well. But thanks for the super chat, Frank. Another one for Tusker. At least Trump chucked paper towels at Puerto Ricans. And I remember the boutique professional managerial class left. And I think a lot of people did. We did as well. I think it's justifiable to do so, to criticize Trump for his Puerto Rico response. But he's seeing people don't have the anger at Joe Biden, which I think is a lack of integrity. We got a few more here. Thanks for the $10. Masterio Dimps Shady, previously known as Cal, has admitted the pivot. He said he now holds back on criticizing Dems because that could be interpreted as Republicans equal good. So I don't know how people say it. I don't know how they say that stuff out loud without being embarrassed. The money must be good.
Quite a profile and courage, though.
Thank for the $5, Will. They call him Dark Brandon because many areas are dark and inactive in his brain scan. Man, you guys are fucking mean, man. You guys are mean. But that's funny though. Thank for 499 for Tuzo. CJ, I want to credit you for coining the phrase toxic positivity. AOC in that name Sunscreen video personifies that. Yeah, that's a concept that we talk about RBN all the time. This is what Bernie Sanders, AOC and Bernie Sanders, but especially Bernie, like he don't get called out enough for this. Bernie's YouTube channel is nothing but toxic positivity. Hey guys, we gotta get this done. Hey, we're gonna fight for the workers over here, and we help break the strike. Yeah, things gonna get great. Like it's just nothing but toxic positivity. It's bullshit.
Holy cow!
And they know it's not gonna happen, so they be bullshitting people. That's the egregious thing about it. And I remember one of the times we were talking about it, the toxic positivity. I remember specifically was in response to the railroad vote. And remember when Bernie Sanders put out a video after that, he was like, "Yeah, guys, we getting wins for the railroad workers. Yeah, we getting great things for the workers. The same thing happened with Amazon. Yeah, we doing great things for the workers. Like, nigga, the Amazon shit not finished. The railroad shit is not finished. He comes in and start dancing and celebrating before the job is done. Like, that's toxic positivity." But anyway, I spare you guys. We got limited time.
He also has a video about the Hollywood actors going on strike too. Oh my god. Okay. Well, hey, Bernie's all with everybody now. Being all happy.
Dude, for real, check out his YouTube. If you guys ever want to see what toxic positivity is, I see those videos. I'm still subscribed for whatever fucking reason. I never took it off. I see his videos all the time. It's always toxic. They don't want you to be angry. They don't want that raw revolution. They want you happy at all times. No, we gotta be in the vibe. We gotta be in the mood. No. We can't be too negative. That's exactly what it is. Anyway, I'm ranting too much. CJ still got his story, so I'm gonna try and get a few of these through these real quick. Thank you for 499. Kes EA City. Thank you for that. I see another one from you, so I'll read that here. AOC is now reduced to being an influencer. That's all she has. Yeah, she has been reduced, but she's more than happy. I mean, it still applies. I guess it do.
She still takes that role. She'll take it.
But she's more than happy. She's more than happy to have that role. More than Thank for the 199 Dominic. If the RBN, if the Harlan's media, the Due Distance left, if the Black Power Media, Black Agenda Report left, if we was dumb and we was still falling for AOC was without a doubt would still be doing this left shit. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But she know she lost us. So she don't even pretend. She do the cringe videos and she don't read the replies. She like, nigga, I don't care. Like I lost them. They're gone. So if you still on my team, if you're a leftist, congrats, you're a dumbass. I'm not even appealing to you no more. Last super chat.
She's decided that her base are Kardashian fans who occasionally vote.
What's that? This is the last super chat. I'll pass to CJ for last story. Then for $20, ARJ. So any super chat after this, we're not trying to shade you guys, but it'll be the last one for the night. Don't worry that you can't afford housing, rent, food bills, healthcare, and you're in debt. Know that we'll be able to defend against Russia-China invasion and the stock market as an all-time high. Capitalists are clowns. This is a story we're going to do tomorrow on RBN Live. I have a lot of stories where I'll get through, where you have capitalists that are actually criticizing Xi Jinping in China because they actually care about food security. They're like, oh my God, what is the cost of China actually caring about feeding their people? There's another story where like, Chinese workers, they pay 60% lower rent than we do. They average around 400, 500 rent. But at what cost? But anyway, I think
that was this one too. Yeah, it skipped over it accidentally. It just says Hawking. Yeah. I think that means Hawking. Hawking Sunscreen.
Yeah, like Hawking. Yeah,
is
like
the squad's equivalent to jumping the shark. We got comedians out here in our comments, but let's get to the final story. It was between RFK backpedaling on his abortion ban or this. I think this probably falls a little bit more in our wheelhouse, and we need to cover it because we haven't covered it as a group as the post-duopoly left. So let's listen to this. This is the Jimmy takedown of Marianne Williamson. So just like the AOC Sunscreen story, we already covered individually. We're going to cover it together here, and we'll keep it short. There's 2 clips amounting to 4 minutes. So let's listen to the entire clip. Comment when you want.
What is your view on the Ukraine war?
Well, I certainly am not naive about how we got there. I certainly understand that the U.S. Poked the bear. I certainly understand about the Aegis missiles in Poland. I don't feel that I'm naive at all about how the U.S. war machine works.
So I'm trying to figure. So you're saying you support Joe Biden's policy in Ukraine?
What I don't support about Joe Biden's policy is when he says for as long as it takes. He and Lloyd Austin just talk about how we're just giving money for as long as it takes. We need to be in support of a negotiated settlement.
So there is already.
She really believes in the professional managerial class. Really believes saying my difference in Joe Biden is I'm not for as long as it takes. Well, how long are you for? Well, I can't really say. Well, what's the difference? So she wants to point out this difference, and you notice he keeps asking one question, and then she gives the opposite response. Like her response here was what she disagrees with him with, and then, but that's not the question he asked. He's like, do you agree with Joe Biden on Ukraine? And do you have the same stance? He's like, what I do or disagree with him on is that I don't think this basically should be a blank check. But if that's the only disagreement, that means you agree with him like literally 99.9% on Ukraine, including cluster munitions, including the latest package that was just sent. She's pretty terrible on Ukraine, and I think she knows it finally after this interview. But we can continue.
She looks like she looks like one of those like wine moms that you interrupted her after her 5th drink. Like, how dare you say I'm wrong?
Let's continue.
There already was a
of course, theoretically, you would say, I mean, Jake Sherman was there. So to some extent, of course, you're aware that in 2014 that the CIA couped the Ukrainian government with the help of the right-wing Nazis. And then the people in the eastern part of Ukraine in the Donbass didn't want to go along with that coup government. And so Ukraine started shelling them.
You see that she wants to interrupt. There's a couple of things I want to say here. I didn't say in the time that you and I covered it, Nick. He is saying something that this is the part she studied. So it's like, don't give me the answer to the test, man. This is the part I do know that I could say that people would say that I know something about it. You're saying it, Jimmy. So that's one thing. And then to Nick's point in a previous stream, and I don't know if you guys saw his point, is that she's going to be disowned for this because in the professional managerial class left, you're not supposed to talk about Ukraine. And the reason is this very thing. You see what he's doing here? He's forcing her to hear the entire details about Ukraine so you can't say, I was not aware of that. Because a lot of NATO left, as you said, and a lot of us, I think Keaton alluded to, they don't make content on Ukraine. So they can basically say, none. A lot of detail I didn't know. You know, it's like Bernie Sanders said that one time about some other funny. I don't really deal with that. So, but Jimmy is forcing her to hear the story about how we got here, where she can't say later in another stream or even pretend to act like she doesn't know about. I'll let it finish, and then if we have some other comments, we can.
The government of Ukraine, the coup government started shelling them. And so they had the peace agreement called the Minsk Accords, which we now know that which was going to give the people in the Donbass, they would stop shelling them and that they would give them some kind of independence because they were the Russian speakers in that country in the east part. And so Ukraine never followed that peace agreement. And now we know because Angela Merkel and others have revealed it, that they never intended on following that peace agreement, and they didn't, and they kept shelling those people in the Donbass. And when Putin invaded, it was to stop that shelling. So were you aware of that history?
I am aware of what you are saying. I am not enrolled in your interpretation of exactly what you are saying. I am not.
Now, think about what she's saying here. Think about what she's saying here. What about the chronological historical record of what he said? They were shelled here. What about that is wrong or is incorrect? Now, she tries to answer it, but listen to her non-answer answer in this second clip, and this will be the last clip we play. Comment if you want, or, you know, to let me know if you want to comment. But listen to the rest of her answer in this video.
Problem I have with it. I do not believe that Ukraine is nothing but a puppet of the United States.
He didn't mention that. He didn't mention anything about a puppet whatsoever, but this is what she chooses to chime in. So it was nothing about the chronological historical record that he said about the coup in Ukraine 2014-15. Nothing about that. She's saying something completely different. Now, let's let the video finish. We'll get final comments, and we can finally end the stream.
Okay, so we're not going to agree on that one.
So if we stop funding the Ukraine government, the Ukraine government shuts down. You know that? Do you know if we stop funding the Ukraine government shuts down, right? We're paying every person in the Ukraine government salary. We're paying their Social Security. You know that, right? Or maybe you don't.
Let me ask you if you know, because I don't like being talked to like, do you know? So
I'm asking, do you know that?
Do you know what I know? Listen, I'm not saying that everything is clean between the United States.
I'm asking you, did you know that?
I know that there are all kinds of business dealings.
So you don't know that? You didn't know that?
That there is money being paid to Ukraine.
That we are paying their entire government salary. You didn't know that? And that's how we could force a peace agreement tomorrow, is because we would just take back that money and their government collapse.
You're right.
Okay.
That if we completely withdrew support from Ukraine, the government of Ukraine would collapse. I certainly understand that. The difference you and I have is that you seem to think that would be a great thing. I don't. I don't think the Russians having complete control of Ukraine and getting their way in this situation is good for Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Finland, Sweden, and I do not believe that that means there would be peace in Europe. There would be anything but peace in Europe. I'm a strong supporter in the path to a negotiated settlement in which there is a Ukraine to negotiate. And what is happening right now, to me, is in a way a vindication of that view, because now real negotiations are beginning. And real negotiations are beginning because both Russia as well as Ukraine know it's not going to be so easy to get everything you want here. And I'm glad that Vladimir Putin is beginning to have countries like China now, for the first time, willing to attend a meeting like that, because he will be getting China, India, Brazil, and other countries, not just the United States, who are saying this thing has got to stop and you're not going to get everything you want.
I thought so. He was just about to say you're just
You
like
sound
a
like
regular.
a
You're
regular
just like
warmonger.
yeah. You're just like a regular warmonger. Let's let it play.
pro-war
I certainly am not naive about how we got there. I certainly understand that the U.S. Poked the bear. I certainly understand about the Aegis missiles in Poland. I don't feel that I'm naive at all about how the U.S. war machine works.
So I'm trying to figure. So you're saying you support Joe Biden's policy in Ukraine?
What I don't support about Joe Biden's policy.
Yeah, we'll leave it there because we've all seen the video. I don't want to keep going back and forth through all the clips. There's a bunch of clips. Let's get our final words so we can get out of here. I got to get to dinner. But what was your take, Kit? And then we'll go to Keaton, and then we'll go to Russell, and then we'll close out. What was your take on this so we can cut this clip here?
My whole take in regards to Marianne Williamson being on Jimmy Dore's show shows that RBN made the correct assessment about her way back when she first got onto your show. She was a fraud and due dissidence. I know you guys ripped her apart as well for the way she treats her staff. If this isn't an eye-opening moment, especially how she just crumbled and fell apart under the Jimmy Dore show, then I don't know what is. Because again, also on top of that, she's running the Democratic Party, so she's already a loser. So what more can be said that all of us haven't said already? This was just her final nail in her coffin. She's irrelevant.
Yeah, I would just say number one, I mean, I made some of these points on our show when we covered this. Number one, the fact that the Ukrainian government would collapse without our support does not mean that we want the Ukrainian government to collapse. The whole idea is that by withdrawing funding for war, you force a peace. And as a result of that peace deal, the Ukrainian government stands, right? A peace deal is good for the preservation of Ukraine. The collapse of Ukraine is not the goal. It's actually quite the opposite. The preservation of Ukraine is the goal. The preservation of the world is the goal, obviously. Number two, Vladimir Putin never wanted Ukraine. The idea that if we don't fund them, there won't be a Ukraine left to negotiate. It's the complete opposite. If we keep funding them, there may not be a Ukraine left. If we stop funding them, there will be peace and there will be a Ukraine. Vladimir Putin never wanted a Russian flag to fly over the capital of Ukraine. He still does not want a Russian flag to fly over the capital of Ukraine. Number three, all those other countries that she was talking about, NATO countries, those are not threatened. The whole point of the Ukraine war is that Putin felt that if he waited until Ukraine joined NATO, it would be too late to push back on NATO because he can't attack a NATO country, right? And so the idea that Ukraine is the first domino to fall and then all those NATO states would fall after that, absolutely ludicrous, speaks to just an ignorance of the issue. And that speaks to, an ignorance of the issue that is not only hers, but is her supporters as well. Right? You see all the people in media propping her up don't know anything about this either, which is why they are not offended by her ignorance on this issue. And her ignorance on this issue, as Jimmy goes on to say in this interview, is getting people killed because it's that kind of shallow two-dimensional thinking from people like this that allows the war machine to propagandize and keep going at the expense of hundreds of thousands of people. It's a horrific tragedy what's going on there for no reason. And it's because of shallow understandings from people like that it keeps going on.
Absolutely. And Russell or Kit, whoever wanted to chime in.
Well, this was a very rough week for her. No sooner did that article come out than Jimmy finally gave her a hard interview. I mean, she hasn't had a hard interview since she was on with you guys.
Yeah.
I think you were the last people who gave her pushback, and it wasn't an interview, but a friend of show, Marcel, gave her a hard time at her event with the 10 people there. We saw how she reacted under that kind of pressure. Very much how she reacted with you guys. The real Marianne came out there.
This is who she's been.
This is who she's always been. She's a ridiculous clown, and everything we know about her tells us she's probably a really sick narcissistic person when the cameras are off, and whenever she's under pressure, you see little flashes of that come out in our behavior. We didn't play that on our show, and you didn't play it either. It's not really the relevant part. But later on, she keeps trying to pull the same card she pulled with you guys. She doesn't say mansplaining, but she likes to play the victim when she gets getting pushed back. She likes to, and he wasn't having it. He turned around just like you guys weren't having it. He kept saying, "Well, don't pretend I'm not letting you speak. I'm letting you speak. Don't do that." Right? She tries to pull that. She didn't say mansplain, but she strongly implied she wanted to go in that I'm being bullied. This is misogynistic. And he called her out on it. Unfortunately, fucking rocket scientist Bill Maher decides to give her a platform this week. Where it's the Geraldo Manson interview. Geraldo was the only guy who could have made Manson come off well in an interview. Bill Maher is the only one who could have redeemed Marianne Williamson in an interview. She actually came off very well compared to fucking Bill Maher.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it, but yeah, I'll leave it there. We'll probably cover it. Nick, did you have anything else to say on this clip?
Yeah, Russell already kind of covered it, but Jimmy absolutely dismantles Marianne here. Like, completely and utterly destroyed any shred of credibility she has in the most entertaining and brilliant but brutal way possible. But just like the interview that Marianne Williamson had on Fox News, you notice that Marianne, unlike her conversation with me, she don't call him a mansplainer, right? Yep. I was on the Steph afterwards, and Steph was like, I was waiting for it. She was like, bro, I was waiting for the mansplainer to come out. And I noticed this because if you watch corporate media, Marianne would do the dance. She would do the dance when she getting grilled, and she would try her best to laugh it off, no matter how awkward she may come off. So the question I have, I'm not making a statement, it's just a question. Why did she get so offended when I asked her tough questions? Why was I the mansplainer when I corrected her over her horrible two-state solution? But Jimmy's not?
Maybe her bigotry was what's coming out. Maybe her little bit of her bigotry was coming out. Just throwing it out there.
That's the point. I think she showed respect to people she deemed to be equal to her class, and that's been consistent with what we heard about Marianne Williamson. So that's the only unique I take on. But go ahead.
And I just want to add this here, and then we can close. I want to add this. I wonder if this is payback for bad faith podcast treatment of RFK. I've been wondering this, like the way that, because it's not a secret that Jimmy Dore likes RFK. But maybe it's pre the Max interview, but he liked RFK, and then Bree likes Marianne Williamson, and Bree kind of got a couple of jabs in on RFK. One when she had Cornel West on, and they got the crack pipe comment about RFK. Several times on the heel, she's gone at him, and then Jimmy Dore gets his opportunity to have her candidate, and he knew all along he was going to shred her. If he knows her stance, Jimmy knows all of her stance, and he knew where he was going to be going with the interview. So I personally just think, even if he didn't intentionally, he got a little bit of personal gratification of pushing her feet to the fire. Who happens to be Bree's candidate versus Go ahead.
I don't think it had anything to do with that. I just think that Marianne Williamson is just not an exciting candidate, and Jimmy Dore just interviewed somebody and just she was just uninspiring. And if you're going to be uninspiring and give neoliberal Democrat answers, then you're open for that invitation. I think that's not. I wouldn't say it would be too much into the response.
I don't get why she would she would go on specifically
For
over
clout.
Ukraine. Does she not know that the two things that Jimmy talk about the most is COVID and Ukraine?
Well,
in the
that's
last
the thing,
couple of
is that
years, those
these
are the
issues
two
were
things
in
he talks
his
about.
wheelhouse.
Go
Yeah,
ahead. Yeah, that's
the
what I'm
thing.
saying.
These issues were
It's
more
almost
in
like
his
she didn't
wheelhouse,
know that. It's almost like she didn't know that. All right,
Hey,
so
sorry,
that's
I gotta
it.
go on. My
go ahead.
laptop is literally about to die, guys. I gotta get going. I see you
Yeah,
guys.
we're about to go. So thanks for joining us. I'll put you guys in the back. I'll play an outro video. That is the post-duopoly show for today. Nick is going off too because his laptop, and then I'll play this outro video. The outro video is just the end of this video we've been analyzing. So this is the end part to that video. You can still hear it. Aaron, if you can make sure to include this in this clip, if you cut this clip, include it all the way until the end of this clip that I'm about to play right here.
The NATO and the United States are using the people of Ukraine as cannon fodder to try to inflict economic damage on Russia. And
Right.
so this isn't about liberating from Russia. This is about us
They
provoking.
were already a country. There was
This
nothing.
was-
We're not
this
talking
was-
about the Donbass and Crimea.
So you can have
Ukraine
this view if you want. It's odious.
It's interesting. So you think that the people of Ukraine and the way they've been fighting in this war are just doing that, just as puppets of the U.S. government? That kind of fighting, that kind of spirit, that kind of unbelievable fighting is
Wow.
only because they're puppets of the U.S. government?
Yes, we are. So if you don't know what's happening there, that's fine. But to say that we're not slaughtering those people for an economic war by the West on Russia just shows a naivete about the situation. The NATO and the United States are using the people of Ukraine as cannon fodder to try to inflict economic damage on Russia. And
Right.
so this isn't about liberating from Russia. This is about us
They
provoking.
were already a country. There was
This
nothing.
was-
We're not
this
talking
was-
about the Donbass and Crimea.
So you can have
Ukraine
this view if you want. It's odious.
It's interesting. So you think that the people of Ukraine and the way they've been fighting in this war are just doing that, just as puppets of the U.S. government? That kind of fighting, that kind of spirit, that kind of unbelievable fighting is
Wow.
only because they're puppets of the U.S. government?
Yes, we are. So if you don't know what's happening there, that's fine. But to say that we're not slaughtering those people for an economic war by the West on Russia just shows a naivete about